Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for April 18, 2025. We are a week away from the 2025 NFL Draft, so let's do some NFL Draft coverage here. Before we get into everything NFL Draft related and intro our co-host for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, I'm wearing something from the merch store. It is my gray Walter Football t-shirt. This is part of our winter collection. I can't remember. But anyway, you can get that and any other shirt here by clicking the link. You can change the colors. Some might look a little off if you change the colors, but mostly I think they'll look good. I think you could turn them into hoodies and long sleeve as well. So lots of options here. We have our mugs, we have an apron. Anything you buy here would really support us. You go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one is Jerks of the College Years, where I talked about people. I ran into Penn State. I spent 6 years there, and I ran into a lot of weird people, as you can see on the cover here, just a bunch of strange individuals, one of whom almost played in the NFL, this guy right here. So if you wanted to read about that, you can. It was fun to write, and I think you guys have fun reading it. Also, please consider Super Chats, Super Stickers. It's the best way to support the show. This week we've had Super Chat support from John Sanders and DeGeneron. The week before, Slew. And before that, Can't Make an Eagle, Armac, The Boss, Karmic. You guys have been so great with your contributions. I can't say that enough. It just really means a lot because YouTube ads pay nothing. And so it definitely helps. All right. We are joined today by Ben Wassley from FFDFantasyFootball.com. Ben, how's it going?
What's going on? I know I must have been on the show a couple of times recently because I went to grab my Walter Football t-shirt and it was in the wash. And I was like, I'm going to have to wear like an equivalently green shirt just to fit into the theme. But yeah, look, it's good to be back. It's a week away. Definitely feeling like that pressure of all that stuff that you need to get done in draft week, all the different draft comps, all the different content we need to get out. But look, we're getting a lot of good news, a lot of good rumors coming in. It's feeling a lot easier to kind of like work out roughly what each team is doing, only to throw it all out the window as soon as the draft starts.
Yeah, that's what always happens. I got hit by it too. Like usually the Friday before the NFL draft, I posted my goals mock, which is something I use for my team draft grades. So I can look at what a team needed to do versus what they did, and then I post the 4 round mock draft for them, like an ideal mock draft. And I'm like, crap! Tomorrow's the Friday before the draft. this occurred to me last night. And so, I was kind of scrambling to get that done, and then I have to do the other possibilities, and then the round 7, which is always a slog, and then we're upon draft week. So lots to do, and I can't wait for it to happen. But at the same time, I'm stressing about it. It's kind of like you are. Degenerate says, crap, I need, I'm not cursing here because then we get demonetized. Not that means so much, like 50 cents down the drain. Crap, I need to get me a Walter Football t-shirt. That would be appreciated. Just click the link below, and we have a lot of options. So that would definitely be appreciated. All right, so let's go to what you have here. So actually, do we have something different? This is your bookie mock. Do you have, Oh, here we go.
The yellow one's better. Yep, there we go.
Okay, so you have your updated 2025 NFL mock draft. We're going to go through that, and then we're going to go through NFL draft odds, kind of like we did last week, except updated, for a week ahead of the draft. So no surprise here. I mean, we did a mock draft with Charlie on Tuesday, which you guys can find by clicking our channel and just searching that. But we had Cam Ward going to the Titans here. You have Cam Ward going to the Titans here. Feels like this is locked in. Odds from Bet365 as you have below. Ward 92%, and then Carter 5%. I'd be shocked if it's not Ward. Like, can you envision a situation where it's not Cam Ward? I feel like it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing, when you turn any bookmaker's odds into percentages, all of a sudden the favorites really drop down because they can't give too much money for the underdogs, or they leave themselves with a lot of liability. So you end up with these weird situations where something's basically locked in and it says like 92%. And you're like, I feel like it's more than that. But at the same time, it's just because the VIG on some of these things is so low. But it's going to be Cam Ward. If it's not Cam Ward, I quit. Like, I can't even do this anymore. Like, that's just too ridiculous.
Yeah, I think everyone will have to quit at that point. Everyone to get their first pick wrong. Unless like something crazy happens, like remember Laramie Tunsil and the whole Bong gate, like maybe that. But I don't see this not being Cam Ward otherwise. So let's go to number 2, Travis Hunter. Hunter is 66% to go here. And as Pollyanna is commenting, Hunter for second pick is at -700 now. LOL. I think that given those odds, I think Carter's worth a shot. I do think it's gonna be Hunter, but if you're probably getting Carter, well, like plus 400. You may know the answer. If it's -700 plus 400, maybe plus 450. That seems like a decent shot, but I do think it's gonna be Hunter as you have here. So, any reason for Hunter over Carter, or is just do you think this is definitely going to happen?
Well, it's interesting because Tony Pauline came out yesterday and said, actually, it's closer to 50-50, and there's a lot of people in the building that are really stumping for Carter. But he's really the only person who's come out and said anything pro Carter in the last 2 weeks. For the most part, it's all been Travis Hunter talk. Everyone seems to think they're going to go Hunter, with the idea being that they can play him on offense and defense, and they have weaknesses in both spots, but they kind of just need someone to fill in based on where the injuries are and where their greatest need is at the time. I don't know that I really buy that idea. I feel like the idea of having someone who's going to sweep between two different spots in the NFL seems insane to me. I don't know that anybody, even Travis Hunter, is good enough to do that. I feel like they really need him to at least specialize in one position. And this is really high in the draft to be picking up someone specializing as a wide receiver. So I find this whole situation strange, and yet it does seem like where the tea leaves are going at the moment.
It is the Browns, though, so you kind of have to throw all logic out the window,
Yeah.
They don't have the best track record here. Another team that doesn't have the best track record is the Giants. Abdul Carter here, I think, would be the pick if Hunter is off the board, and vice versa. If Carter goes too, I think it's going to be Hunter, as the odds say here. Carter 63%, Hunter 26%. So yeah, I feel like whatever the odds are, whether it's Hunter to go 3 or Carter to go 2, I think it's worth a small bet to bet on that, just in case it happens. But like I said, I think it will be Hunter and then Carter 3. It would be really shocking if the first 3 picks weren't Ward and then Hunter and Carter in some order, right?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, and one thing I should mention with the odds on here, these were from Monday, whereas the bookie mock we're going to go through in a second is from the last 24 hours. So those ones will be a little bit more up to date with odds. But certainly, Carter seems to be the heavy favorite to go at 3. If he doesn't go at 2, he's going to go at 3. This really disadvantages the Giants for me because they don't need an extra edge rusher. I know we could say, well, they're going back to 20 years ago or so and having that elite edge rush, but they've got so many other needs. I think they would much prefer to have Hunter. And if Hunter falls to this spot, I think that's going to benefit both teams ultimately. It just doesn't seem the direction this is going in. And I think most of the NFL will be really happy if it ends up going this way around.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear the odds are more recent, because it'll be cool to kind of compare to what it was for Monday to see whatever see what sort of alignment we had. Patriots, definitely Will Campbell. I would have guessed Campbell 46%, and then Membu 13, Carter 10, Walker 10, Graham 6, Genty 4. Genty would be really surprising there, but Campbell makes the most sense. It sounds like I feel like even if Hunter were here, I think the Patriots would still take Campbell over Hunter. Not so much Carter. It felt like they loved Carter from meeting him, but I'd be shocked if it's not Campbell. I mean, his athleticism is off the charts, and I know his arm length is kind of short, but we've seen tackles do well with shorter arms. Like Michael Roos is a really good tackle. He had 32-inch arms. Jake Matthews had shorter arms. He's done really well in Atlanta. So I don't think this is a disqualifier. But even if he doesn't pan out, you can move him to guard. And it's not ideal to draft a guard at 4, but it's happened before. I mean, Brandon Sharp went 5. So it could happen. So yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty surprised if it's not Campbell here, right?
Yeah, look, it's not locked in as Campbell. It's certainly the first pick where it would not be shocking at all if a different player arrives here. If this is Jalen Walker or something like that, I think we'd all think, oh, that's a little bit weird, but at least it's not totally out of the realms of possibility. But I do think that Will Campbell's by far the most logical pick here, and I think it's probably what they're going to end up doing unless something changes in the coming days. Yeah,
agreed. All right, so 5, Jacksonville taking Mason Graham. The odds for Graham being the pick here are 47%, Jalen Walker 12%, kind of like that. Membu 11%, Genty 11%, Campbell 7%, Warren 4%. So Charlie and I have Membu in our mock drafts at 11%, and like I said, Walker 12% looks appealing. I feel like one of those, given the odds, I think those are really good odds for those 2 players. It could be Graham too. There was some pessimism with Graham from a couple of Charlie sources, where one of them called him the Marshmallow Man because just of his body type. And he actually had Kenneth Grant over Mason Graham, the other Michigan tackle. But if the Jaguars went Graham, it shouldn't surprise anyone. I mean, they've needed a defensive tackle since Calais Campbell left, so this definitely fits a need.
Yeah, look, there was a mock where I had Kenneth Grant here to the point where his photo remained come mock 4.0, as we remember from last time. But there are a lot of different people coming out and saying O-line's very possible. I found at least 4 different sources who all said, just watch out for O-line at this pick. So even though the bookies seem to suggest that defensive tackle is pretty much a lock, I do feel like that if it was O-line here, this wouldn't be a shock at all. It is clearly an area that they need to pick up. It's just that D-line's a heavier need, but there's other guys in the second and third round that they can get as a defensive tackle. It's a deeper class for defensive tackles. So if they like one of the O-linemen, I think it would be reasonable to pick him here and then go interior D-line later on.
Do you are the odds on Walker and Membu in your bookie mock draft? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get to see what they are. So that'll be interesting. Pollyanna says Genti at 5-1 is definitely worth a bet. I could see it happening. I mean, it makes sense. I do think it's I think it's more going to be one of the top 3 here, Graham, Walker, or Membu. But Genti 5-1, it does it seem logical for them. They need a running back. ATN has been a bust. Bigsby, I like Bigsby, but it didn't seem like they were too enthused with him. It is a new coaching staff, but we'll see how they like him. Paulina also says, speaking of Grant, he is only -230 to be drafted in the first round. Like cash easily in the top 10. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. Like he's all over the place. I've seen him some mock drafts at 32 to the Eagles, and Charlie has him at 11 to the Niners. So yeah, it's really crazy how it's all over the place. Nolan's -300. Yeah, I would put Grant over Nolan. But yeah, that's pretty wild. Anyway, let's move on to the Raiders, taking Ashton Genti here. He is the favorite at 49%, and then Willie Johnson, depending on what AI model you are. It's 10%, Jalen Walker 10%, Graham 7%, Membu 5%, McMillan 5%. Given McMillan's recent tumble, I'd be surprised if it's him. But yeah, I mean, Genti makes a lot of sense. At 10%, I would definitely take Willie Johnson. Yeah. So what was your reasoning here for the Raiders taking Genti at 6?
I mean, firstly, if Will Johnson and Willie Johnson are both available, just let it ride a little bit. You're going to get one of them later on. They can't. One of them might fall. There's double odds now. But yeah, look, I just feel like this is the most likely outcome. But I could definitely see them going in a number of directions. They really need another cornerback and an outside guy, and I think Johnson is like the prototypical guy you could put there. Look, I even don't think a member or something like that is totally out of the question here. Going O-line is something they could definitely use as well. So. That's a chance as well. I think they could go in 3 or 4 different directions here, but Genti's the guy I'm likely to mock to them unless we hear some really clear news before the draft.
Okay. Bagger says Nolan is top 10 on PFF. Yeah, he's all over the place. I've seen him top 10. I've seen him second round. Like I have no idea like where to mock him. So I lost. Any inclination on where you think Nolan might go?
I struggle as well. I've had him as high as 16, and you'll see where he falls in the bookie mock. And I'm not going to give it away now, but it's going to shock you. It's not where you expect him to go. Same with Kenneth Grant. There's some players that went in some really weird places based on the odds, and they're kind of making me reconsider where I put them in this mock. But in this mock, he goes kind of like mid-range, first round, but I've seen him all over the shop. Okay.
I kind of wonder where they get these odds from, like -230 for Grant, because no, I mean, Charlie has them pretty high. Charlie's had the most accurate mock draft. So if I'm setting the odds, I'm kind of looking at Charlie's mock to see like where these guys are going to go. But I just wonder where they're placing them. I don't know. I guess maybe they look at like a bunch of mock drafts. Like maybe I assume Mel Kiper's, even though has Mel Kiper even done a mock draft this year?
Yeah,
I don't. He has. Okay, because
he has done a few. I've got it here, in fact. Yeah. I can even tell you where he's got Grant, which is not even in the first round.
Wow. Okay, so maybe that's why the odds are so low like that.
I think he talked about him being more of a nose tackle and they fall.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had some nose tackles go very high too. BJ Raji, for example, like we've who's that Ravens great nose tackle? Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Let me see. It was Uh, I'm not- I can't find. Oh, Haloti Nada. He went in like the top half of the first round too. So um, yeah, and those tackles, yeah, they tend to drop, but like he can get after the quarterback, and that's the difference. Like if they can generate pressure, then they definitely go high. But if they're more run specialists, then they tend to fall. Bagley says Chiefs desperately need a nose tackle. I agree. Pennell can't play forever. Wouldn't be shocked if they pass up on Grant. Yeah. I mean, if Grant falls to them, I think Andy Reid would love to get him, even given the needs at offensive line. But I just don't know if he's going to get there that far. All right, so let's move on here. So you have the Jets taking Armand Membu. I have a feeling that I might mock Membu to the Jets as well. The only issue I have with that pick though is that they took a tackle last year, and I just I know for a fact like teams don't like to draft the same position 2 years in a row, because when it comes contract time in 4 years, they have to re-sign both guys to huge contracts, and like I know they don't like to do that because like they have to pay the one position so much money. It's kind of like why the Browns passed on Bradley Chubb that 1 year, and they took Denzel Ward instead. But I mean, it's happened before, and if the Jets think that Membu is the best player available, then I think they probably take him. So yeah, I mean, Membu's 40%, Warren 19, Graham is 10, Simmons 8, Banks 6, Sanders 6. Simmons being at 8% seems crazy given the torn patellar tendon. To take him at 7. But I mean, Membu makes a lot of sense. So like why'd you mock Membu to the Jets?
I agree on the Simmons thing. I mean, I know he's more of a pure tackle than someone like Banks, but the idea of Simmons going to before Banks would be pretty crazy to me. That seems very, very, very high. I think they definitely need a proper tackle here. They need to give Justin Fields every chance they've got, or whatever rookie they decide to put in. And the best way to do that is to give him a very strong O-line. I know there's talk of bringing in Tyler Warren, but there's no point in having Tyler Warren there if your quarterback's constantly getting sacked. Like, they need to improve the O-line to give him a chance to actually see what they've got. Tyler Warren, for me, is a big reach, which would be based on Brock Bowers going last year. And I think that's really the only alternative here to Membu.
Yeah, Bagley with the right answer. It depends on which player has the higher rating in EA college football. That's a good one. I'd look that up for the Jets. All right, so Jalen Walker to the Panthers. I think if he's here, it's definitely almost certain to be the pick. Although I kind of wonder if Jalen Walker is going to be on the board. Just kind of wonder. I feel like he will go in the top 7. But if he falls to 8, I think he's going to be fixed here. So Walker 32%. You have Williams 19, McMillan 10, Graham 9, Johnson 6, Warren 5. So I mean, do you agree that like there's a really good chance Walker doesn't make it past Carolina? I mean, it's your pick, but I think there's.
I would be shocked if Walker's still around at 9, and even if he's around at 9, I think the Saints take him. Like, there's no way he's making it out of the top 10, but I can't imagine he's making it past this pick. It's not impossible that I look at him and think, well, Michael Williams is a little bit more of like a pure D-line edge rusher. I think that's an argument you can make, but Walker's got a little bit more around about him. I'd be happy with either Williams or Walker here, but if they take anyone else, that's going to seem really strange to me, unless someone like a Mason Graham potentially falls and the edge rushers are gone. That's the only other pick that makes sense. For example, like a Ted McMillan here, I think that's crazy, and yet his odds are the 3rd highest, and they have been the whole time. I don't think that. I mean, they've got a lot of wide receivers. They just brought in Xavier Leggett last season. Like, I don't think going early wide receiver makes sense here when your defense is so bad.
Yeah, and especially given that there's no like blue chip receiver. If it was like a prospect like Neighbors or Harrison from last year, then yeah, obviously you take him. But McMillan is not that sort of player. I feel like he's a little bit behind Odunze if you were to put him in last year's draft. Maybe even probably closer to Brian Thomas. So I totally agree with that. And yeah, I feel like this pick will come down to Walker, Michael Williams, or Mason Graham, as you said. Those 3 make the most sense to me. All right, so number 9, Shador Sanders. So if Sanders going to the Saints, odds for QB 53%, and then corner 11, and then a bunch of other positions. Sanders is over is 8.5, 66%. First round 62%. So yeah, talk me through why you decided to put Sanders to the Saints.
I'm still so torn on this one. I look at what the Saints are doing, and I think there's absolutely no logic to it. I can't work out what they're trying to do, and for that reason, it just feels like the kind of stupid thing they do. I'm really unsure on this. The more I'm looking at it, the more I think they're probably going to go to the Steelers. There's been a lot of talk in the last couple of days since I made this that the Steelers is kind of a likely landing spot, and I think that is probably more likely, but I don't know. It's so hard to mock the Saints. Anybody, no position really makes pure sense because they have so many needs, and yet they're all going to be totally useless if they've got Spencer Rattler here. I'd love to see them not take a quarterback at all, go with Rattler, and then just tank. But I don't think that's what they're actually going to do. That's not what the Steelers have done. What the Saints have done really at any point that I can remember. I feel like they're probably going to decide, no, we need a quarterback. Sanders in here. He's a big name. Let's go get him. It just feels like the kind of dumb thing they
do. yeah, dumbest pick available. Just put it to the Saints.
Yeah,
I agree. I wonder if Tom listening to this, who joins us on Saturday, just watching this and like just crying inside that Spencer the Silver Snake Rattler won't get a shot to start next year. I'm rooting for Tom because he loves Rattler. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, Sanders, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Sanders is the pick here. What do you think about Todd McShay's pick of the Saints? I know he has Jackson Dart slotted to the Saints at 9. What do you think about that?
I've heard a lot of people talking about that, saying that he's a better scheme fit and there's more upside there. This feels like a massive reach for Jackson Dart. I feel like even if you're the Saints, surely you know that you can probably trade down like 15 spots or come up early in the second round and probably still get Dart there. I don't understand why you do that, and yet it's the Saints, and so anything makes sense here.
Yeah, that would be wild to take him to 9. That would earn $1 million for sure. Spiromancer says being a Saints fan around draft season is so annoying because it feels like no one ever knows what we're going to do, and then at the end of the day, it's a reach for a project pass rusher with a high RAS. Well, Spiromancer, in my mock draft, I haven't taken Shamar Stewart, so I know what the Saints do. I know what the Saints do. So Shamar Stewart, I feel like I was on the One Bar Luppigus show on, was it Tuesday? This week has been so long. I think it was Tuesday, and they asked me to name my number one bust for the 2025 NFL draft, and I said Shamar Stewart. He's so athletic. He has the high RAS, relative athletic score that people talk about. He's only had 4.5 sacks in college. Like, he just hasn't produced. And that's why people think he's going to drop. But like, if I'm a team that loves athletic players, and if I have a defensive coordinator who's like, oh man, I could turn this guy into the next, I don't know, Bruce Smith. Like, they're probably going to take him early. Like, these guys always go early. It's kind of like Marcus Davenport, where they even traded up for him, and he just was a bust. So I feel like that would be a very Saints type of move. Sphere message says, I'd love Sanders though. Yeah, if you guys traded down from like 9, let's just say a perfect trade. Sean Payton trades with his old team. Denver really loves Genty. Let's say Genty falls past the Raiders. They need to probably move ahead of the Bears. And Denver has like no needs except for running back, and plus receiver too, and that's it. So they move from 20 to 9, and then the Saints move right in front of the Steelers and take Sanders at 20. I think that'd be great for them. But to take him at 9, like that'd be crazy. But they could do it. I know this is not what we think that we should do. They should do. This is what we think they will do.
The other question is, can you imagine Kellen Moore with an unathletic quarterback like Sanders? Like, that's not really someone we've ever seen him really even work with, let alone have success with. Like, that's the main thing that gives me pause here. Like, I know I joke about like the Saints doing something dumb, but I mean, that's the only reason I can imagine them taking Dart is going, well, at least he has a little bit of athleticism to work with. But if you're going to do that, just wait for the second round and take Jalen Milroe. Like, that would do exactly that same thing. Then you can kind of have that guy that's kind of prototypical of what Kellen Moore likes to work with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no reason to reach for a quarterback at 9. It doesn't make sense. All right, so let's go to 10. So you have the Chicago taking Tyler Warren. I'm always curious to see where Warren's going to go because it's very difficult for me to slot him in a mock draft just because like there's only like one team from I would say 11 to 17 that needs a tight end, and that's the Colts. And so like that's kind of like where I want to put Warren, but then you can't put him to any of those teams so they don't need tight ends. That's why I have him going to 18 in my mock draft to Seattle, but I'm like, there's no way he's going to fall to 18. So it's like, I'm always like, it's just so difficult to slot this guy. But I mean, look, Chicago makes sense. If Genty's off the board, he's probably best player available who makes sense to the Bears, right?
Yeah, I struggle with this. I'd much rather see them take Kelvin Banks. I feel like they just need one more O-lineman. I know they brought a whole heap of guys in, but I still feel like they have one hole there, and they need to protect Caleb Williams. But they also did lose Keenan Allen. It makes sense to bring in another pass catcher. I don't know that Tyler Warren is the guy. I feel like we've been so spoiled with guys like Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta that we're kind of like, oh yeah, every good college tight end is just going to be amazing as soon as they go into the NFL. That was never a thing 2 years ago. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, let's take these guys in the top 10. This feels like a reach for me. But again, this is predictive, not what I think should happen. Yeah. I would go Banks, but I think they're more likely to go Warren.
It's kind of nuts that Bowers won 11, or Bowers did not go to 11. I should say, because the Jets could have taken him at 11. They passed on him, and then he goes 13, and Warren goes before Bowers does. Now I know this draft class is not as good, but it's still strange to me that like a worse tight end prospect, even though Warren's a great prospect, to go before an even better prospect in the same position just seems very strange to me, but. I don't know. It's a weird draft. I think you're going to see, I said this before, I think you're going to see a couple, maybe at least one, maybe 2 or 3 very strange picks, like in the 20s, or I guess like probably in the 20s, because, you know, once you get to the Super Bowl teams, they're smarter. But I think you're going to see one team reach for a guy in the 21 to 29 range, and we're going to be like, what the heck is that? Like he was 4th round in my mock draft. Like, I think we're going to see something like that. Like, given
it's
how
Cole Strange, yeah.
Yeah, Cole Strange all over again. Yeah, it's probably going to be even worse. Like, Strange was a 3rd round prospect because the Rams even said they were considering him in the 3rd. Like, this guy's going to be like 4th round in our mock drafts. So, like, what in the world just happened? Like, it's good. Like, you know, it's going to blow up. Like, Twitter's going to blow up because of it. It's going to be crazy. Every time there's a horrible pick like that, like the traffic on my site just spikes like crazy, because like I know what happens. Like, people are like looking for scouting reports on this guy. Like, who is this guy? Let me look him up. So yeah, so I always enjoy those moments. Bagger says, yeah, Jets would probably rather have Bowers and Membu than Warren and Fashanu. Yeah, I mean that's I agree with that totally.
I would.
Yeah, I don't like they were interested in Bowers last year, and then ultimately Joe Douglas said, I can't take a tight end in the 1st round, and it's like, okay, so good job there. And then these Bagel says, I think traffic probably spikes because they want to see you roast the pick. That's another thing. Like, people love to see the bad draft grades, the milling grades. But I do think it is like people Google it and then they're like, like Prospect X's scouting report. They Google it and like our scouting report comes up, you know. So I think that's part of it too. But people do love to see the roasted pick. Okay, so Willie Johnson goes 11 to the Niners. I think in most cases defensive line or offensive line, but if Johnson's available, then it's going to be tough for them to pass on him because he could be considered best player available. So let's say it like this, if Will Johnson's not on the board, do you have any idea like where you think the Niners would go? Maybe like Kellen Banks or Kenneth Grant or someone else. Do you have anyone in mind there? Because I mean, Johnson does make sense to them.
I've really struggled with the 49ers in general. I've given them Banks before. I've given them Grant before. I think in this mock with Michael Williams available, I think that's even possible as well, because we do know they like to go D-line and O-line. It's just, this feels like Johnson falling a little bit. I feel like Johnson's going to be caught somewhere in this 11 to 13 range, and exactly the same thing is going to happen with Banks and Grant. I think we probably see Johnson, Banks, Grant somewhere in kind of 11 to 13, assuming they don't go earlier. I'd be surprised if more than one of them makes it past 13.
Yeah, I know a couple of teams, one team in the teens, and then that really won him. And then, like I said, I was on the One Bar Lefka show. They're Viking fans. The first question they have for me is like, is there any chance Will Johnson falls to 24? And I'm like, well, you know, if there's a Will Johnson and a Willie Johnson, maybe one of them falls. So I had to explain all that. But I don't think he'll make it that far. I think he's definitely going to go in the top half of the 1st round. 12, Teteroa McMillan to the Cowboys. He's another guy I'm interested to see where he goes because everyone's saying he's going to fall now. I have him to Dallas in my mock draft, but I might change it just based on the intel Charlie provided for us on Tuesday. You said this is from Monday, this mock draft. Any consideration on changing this pick?
Yes. I definitely have considered it. I don't know that I'd necessarily change it to Golden, though. This just feels still too early for him. But I do understand the concern around McMillan. Having said that, again, it's the Cowboys. The Cowboys do stuff. Like, we know they're going to pick players that they like, regardless of whether everyone else necessarily agrees with it. But this is a situation where you'll probably see one of Will Johnson or Kelvin Banks or Kenneth Grant for, and all of them kind of make sense. They're kind of the next three needs behind wide receiver. So I think any of them would potentially make sense as well. And I don't think we can even discount running back here either. So this is another one of those picks. All these picks from like 11 to 13 could go in any number of directions, but I feel like it's all these players that belong in this range, with McMillan being a little bit of an interloper who probably belongs a little bit slightly further down, but could easily go up here because of the weakness of wide receiver in this class.
This could be the pick where we're like, what the heck just happened? What if this pick is like Emeka Egbuka or Quinshon Judkins? Like, yeah, I don't know, right, like something strange. Like, not even, that is even like not that crazy because they're second rounders for the most part. But like, what if it's like some fourth rounder who are like, I don't know, because the Raiders that one year they took Darius Hayward-Bay over Michael Crabtree, so they had that history, and it feels like the latter years of Al Davis's tenure as owner feels like what the Cowboys are going through now with Jerry Jones. So I think we can see something strange here. I don't know, but
I want to see Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson in the first round. Make it happen. I love Tez Johnson.
that'd be
I remember asking you about Tez Johnson like 3 years ago. I'm like, is he going to be good? Is he going to be good? And you're like, he's really small.
No. that'd be great if that was the pick. Anyway, Kelvin Banks to the Dolphins. Like, this is a depressing team, I think. I don't know if you heard me ask the question to Charlie when we did the show on Tuesday, but I was like, what is the worst situation for the Dolphins? Is it Patrick Paul as their starting left tackle when Tua is probably one more concussion away from being just knocked out of the NFL? Is it the cornerback duo of Storm Duck and Ethan Bonner? Or is it Ashton Davis starting at safety? what is the worst situation for the Dolphins?
It's so ugly. Like, I don't know how they got themselves in this situation. This team used to be good, really recently. Like, they're still not bad. It's just they have these random holes, and I don't know how they haven't managed to fill them in free agency. It's not that hard to do. Like, they should be able to do a better job of this. They've really screwed the pooch. I don't understand what's going on here. If Will Johnson's available, you have to take Will Johnson at 13 for me. You can't go ahead with those cornerbacks. They're just going to get destroyed. Having said that, he's not really prototypical for their type either, so I'm not really sure, but I do think he makes sense. But having said that, if Kelvin Banks is here, I feel like you kind of have to take him as well. So if both Banks and Johnson are somehow available here, I'll be really interested to see what this pick is, and it will probably be someone totally unexpected as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Banks can, even if they like Paul at left tackle, I mean, he was bad last year, but, they spent a second-round pick on him. But, like, Banks could play guard, too, which they need. They signed James Daniels, but they still really need another guard and a center. Like, that's another bad situation. They might have the worst offensive line in the NFL. Their offensive line right now is projected to be Patrick Paul, Liam Eichenberg, Aaron Brewer, James Daniels, and Austin Jackson, who can't stay healthy. That is I like your face there. That is horrible.
The best case scenario for them as well. That's probably not what it's going to end up being halfway through the season as well. It's going to get worse.
I know. It's awful. All right, so yeah, I feel like Banks just makes so much sense. I have that in my mock draft too. All right, so Colston Loveland to the Colts, the second tight end off the board to Indianapolis. I have Tyler Booker here going to the Colts, but like I said, I mean, the Colts were the one team in the 11 to 17 range that made sense for a tight end, and here we go. You have Loveland going here. So why Loveland over like an offensive lineman or a cornerback?
Mainly because Warren's not here. I just feel like tight end's kind of the direction they're heading in. I do like O-lineman, but it still feels just a little bit early for me to see them taking a guard when they have legitimate other needs. Like, it's fine to take a guard if you don't have any other glaring needs, and yet they haven't had a tight end. They haven't had really the best pass-catching options over the middle of the field for quite some time. I feel like either Warren or Loveland fills that hole for them. There's the odds all say that Loveland is going somewhere in the top 19, and there's not really any other spots for him. Like, I do feel like he is a top 20 player. I feel like it's either here or the Seahawks for him make the most sense. As much as I'd love to see him go to the Chargers, because I feel like that's a nice spot for him, it just feels like he's likely to go earlier. So I kind of had to slot him somewhere, and here made the most sense.
Yeah, that's definitely a logical pick for sure. All right, so Falcons taking Michael Williams. That's what I have in my mock draft. I think he goes top 16. If even if he doesn't make it, even if he makes it past Atlanta, I think Arizona would scoop him up if he's available. So, it just really makes sense for the Falcons to address the pass rush, right?
What I found really surprising is Tony Pauline coming in a day or two ago saying that he thinks the Falcons are the most likely team to trade down. And I think that it does make sense for them to say, oh, look, there's this landing spot here. We know the Bengals are probably going to take an edge rusher. So let's get ahead of the Bengals and the Cardinals and try to get the first edge rusher off the board, because you can't really see Williams going anywhere between 11 and 14. I personally disagree with that idea. I think it's the Colts that go down. I think it makes way more sense to move up to the Colts spot. You jump all of the edge rush needy teams, and then you get your guy, and the Colts can go down and they get better value for their guard. So I think we probably still see an edge rusher go to the Falcons here. And I think if a trade happens, it's probably the Colts is the spot that's most interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I can see both. I can see the Vikings trading down. They only have 4 picks. Redskins only have 5 picks. So those are other teams I feel like could trade down. I would be pretty surprised if Minnesota's picking at 24. We'll get to the pick in a little bit, but like only having 4 picks, and like they really don't have any needs. That roster is loaded, so they can trade down and maybe get picks for next year or something. Okay, so the next pick is here we go. Kenneth Grant's going to Arizona. I think Kenneth Grant's definitely a logical pick here. Any defensive lineman or cornerback makes sense for them. Their defense has been so bad. Their offense has gotten better. But they can't stop anyone, so they have to address the defense. So yeah, Kenneth Grant, it just makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, it's going to be someone along the D line, or potentially. I mean, look, if Will Johnson somehow here they run to the podium for no particular good reason to put Will Johnson up there. I could even imagine them going Barron here if they really love him, but I think it's more likely that they go D line. A lot of the odds are pretty high on O line. I just don't know that really makes sense. There's no players that really belong in this range as an O lineman, so I think they're probably going to go defense somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Kelvin Banks falls, then sure. But I agree. I think O-line doesn't really make sense, even though they are worried about Jonah Williams' health. So it's kind of like the basis for that pick. But you're right. Like unless Banks falls, there's not going to be a logical alignment to take. Bagley says Panthers also said they're open to trading down, which makes sense given that their next pick is 57. Yeah, so I feel like if Jalen Walker is off the board, which I'm leaning toward like more and more likely to happen, then I think they trade down. Maybe Dallas moves ahead of them, or moves into their 8th spot to move ahead of Chicago for Genti if he makes it past the Raiders. I could see that trade happening. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers don't pick till 57, so that's true. They need to trade down. I think Barron falls a bit. Won't be shocked if Amos goes before him. Yeah, I mean, Charlie posted an article about this on the Hot Press, I think it was last week, where he interviewed some teams and kind of gauged their board for the cornerbacks. And it seemed like every team gave him a different answer for who the number 3 cornerback was going to be behind Travis Hunter and Will Johnson. Some people said Amos, some people said Benjamin Morrison, some people said there was a Nazariah Thomas answer. Barron was one of them. Harrison was one of them. Siobhan Ravel got a response. So it's really it's beauty is in the eye of the holder, as Emmitt Smith once said. It's going to be whichever cornerback is more appealing to which team, also which scheme fits best for that cornerback. So I mean, I could see Barron falling. I can see Barron going here. It wouldn't surprise me. All right, so 17, Mike Green going to the Bengals. Edge rush, definitely a need. There's speculation they could trade Trey Hendrickson after the draft. And so that's more likely to take an edge rusher, which definitely could happen. So any thoughts to Mike Green over some of the other edge rushers like Azaraku or someone else like that?
I feel like Green has more upside. I know there's a lot of character concerns around him, but I feel like the upside is kind of too hard to avoid here. And I feel like the Bengals are the kind of team that might be okay with that. I can imagine them going safety potentially or cornerback. Their secondary is pretty weak, but edge rush is their greatest weakness, especially if Hendrickson's gone. I guess my question for you is, you and Charlie are way away from the consensus. I know you guys have him 2nd or 3rd round, and most people have him in this sort of range here. What are you seeing that has you dropping him so far?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie did a report on that, saying that like some teams just remove them from their draft board just because he has such big character concerns. Now, like if a team like the Bengals, who have had a history of drafting character players, like maybe not as much recently as they have in the past, but in the past they used to draft all these guys with character concerns. If they have no character concerns with Mike Green, then yeah, I mean it makes sense for them here. But if they're one of the teams that remove them from the draft board, then they're definitely not going to take him. So. It just depends on how he checked out, like character wise, and teams will have like different evaluations on character, just based on like their interviews with the players. Like sometimes they'll think, oh, he's not that bad, we could turn him around, and sometimes they'll just be put off by a player. I wrote this in my book, in like the first book I wrote, which is called The Safety and Field Goal. I listed like the top 5 like craziest stories about NFL players, and like one player who came in. This was a defensive lineman from an SEC school. He came in for an interview at the combine with the team, and they asked him, "Why do you love football?" And he said, "I love football because it feels great. It feels like I'm hitting a BI blank blank H." So they, after the interview was over, the coaches and the GMs were like, oh, we can't take this guy. So about like hitting women, like we can't take this guy. Yeah, like yeah, you never know. Like if the next team that interviewed that guy may not have asked that question, and they may not have thought anything about him. So teams might get different responses from these players too. Yeah, I think like I said, if the team clears Green character-wise, he'll go first round. But if they all don't like him at all as a character, character issue, like for example George Pickens he would have been a first-round prospect, but teams didn't like his character. He did have injury stuff too, but he fell because of character primarily. So yeah, that's why we have Green falling. But I have him in the 3rd round. It's really because I had issues slotting him in the 2nd round, but I think ultimately I will have him in the 2nd round.
Makes sense. I think I'll end up with him in the 1st round, but I feel like this feels high. It's just that this is what the odds say. The odds say that he's under 17.5 is more likely than he's over. And I do get locked into the odds a little bit sometimes if it's kind of across the board.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think I bet the over, just based on what Charlie said. But yeah, I mean, look, if the Cardinals we think we can turn this guy around, or he's not that bad, then they'll take him. Bengals going receiver, says John. that would be a Bengals thing to do, right? Just not address the defense at all. All right, so 18, Tyler Booker going to the Seahawks. So you and I almost have Seattle and Indianapolis flipped. Like I have the other tight end going to Seattle, and then I Booker going to Indianapolis. But I mean, yeah, Seattle. I mentioned the Dolphins as having the worst offensive line. Seattle is a candidate too. Although I mean they have really good left tackle, but otherwise it's pretty depressing what they have up front. So. Yeah, Booker this definitely fills a need. Like it's any reason beyond that, just like biggest need, yeah.
I mean, it's the best guard, basically. Yeah. I think in this class, and I feel like that they need interior O-line help. So perfect fit. I know people say it's too early, but we talked about this. I think I mentioned it. I asked this question to Charlie as well. Like guard contracts are increasing massively over the last couple of years, and going with that, draft value of guard should go up as well. So I'm happy to take one in this range. I feel like top 10's a little bit too early, but this is certainly the range where I'd happily take one.
Yeah, teams love his character. He's like the opposite of Mike Green. They love his leadership and everything like that. So I think he'll go 1st round for sure. He's 75%. So yeah, I think that should be even higher. 19, Jihad Campbell going to the Buccaneers. I wonder if he's going to be available, but if he is, I feel like Arizona could take him, for example. But if he is here for Tampa, I think that he would be a very logical pick, given Levante David's age and Anthony Walker's injury history and Devin White's absence from the team past year. Was it 1 year or 2 years? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, Devin White's gone, so they definitely need a linebacker. Any other considerations here for Tampa, or because we all have Campbell going to?
Yeah, Campbell's the popular one to mock here. I have seen that a couple of reports coming out saying he's going to fall because of that shoulder injury, but I don't know, that feels like pretty old news to me, and also concerns about that he's actually not that experienced playing off the ball. But again, I think that's just more impressive in what he's done with that lack of experience, and he already looked so good last year. And plus, he gives you a number of options as well. We saw it happen with Zaven Collins, where it wasn't working as an off-the-ball linebacker, so they moved him to more of an edge rusher. If you take a player with those two options, then all of a sudden, if something goes wrong, you at least have this second opportunity to get some value out of the pick. If they don't go that way, the Campbell way, I can imagine them going edge rusher. I feel like if Campbell's not here, or if they just decide to go in another direction, I think that's most likely.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we go to Denver here. Omarion Hampton to the Broncos. I could see them trading up for Jency, who makes it past the Raiders. But still running back here. They really don't have any other needs. So you could see maybe receiver, but I think Sean Payton even said today that they were going to really focus on running backs. So any thoughts to the other running backs, or do you think Hampton's clearly ahead of the other two?
I think Hampton's a more natural complement to Jaleel McLaughlin. I feel like he's a sufficient receiver that they can leave him out there on every down, and he's kind of that bigger back, while McLaughlin's kind of the small, shifty guy. So I feel like it's kind of the right combination of what they need of the big back and the change of pace guy, as opposed to some of these guys who can kind of be an every down guy, but they don't really exactly complement what McLaughlin offers. I think they like McLaughlin enough that they want to keep him involved. So it makes sense for them to have a back who kind of does the opposite job to that.
Yeah, Bagger says, I think Henderson's to the Broncos more likely than Hampton. I'll say this, Cecil Lammey, who covers the Broncos, he tends to get everything right at the Broncos. He kind of just reading from what he was saying, seems like he thinks the Broncos are going to take Judkins in the second round. But I don't know, maybe he just doesn't think that Henderson, maybe he thinks Hampton won't be here, because Dallas could take him. I don't know. I have to maybe ask him about it, but he definitely thinks that Judkins to Denver at second round makes sense, but I didn't see who he thinks in the first round. I was kind of looking for that. I didn't have much time to kind of look into it. All right, so Pittsburgh at 21, Derek Harmon here. I think Harmon makes a lot of sense. I've had Harmon to the Steelers before in my mocks. I now have Harmon going to Arizona at 16. So I think 16 to 24 is kind of the sweet spot for Harmon. So if let me ask you this: if Shedeur Sanders were available here, would you have mocked him to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, 100%. Yes, I think Sanders actually really do. Sorry, I think the Steelers do really like Sanders, and if he's there, they'll happily take him. I just don't think they like him enough to really jump up to go get him. But if he gets past New Orleans, I think this is kind of his floor for me.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, number 22, Walter Nolan. So we were talking about him earlier. Defensive tackle, definitely a big need. They have to stop the run, and they've struggled with that. A little bit better last year at times, but then they struggled toward the end of the year when Denzel Perriman was out of the lineup. So, Walter Nolan makes a lot of sense. I've loved him here, but you have him off the board. We were talking about how we just don't know where to slot him. But, 22 to the Chargers makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think I've had Loveland here on my last 3 mocks or something like that, because it does make so much sense being a Michigan guy. But I've started to think because he's going to go earlier, they need to go elsewhere. And I think defensive tackle is a big need. They love to have really strong trenches. So I think it makes sense to bring Nolan in here. I feel like he's the kind of player that will go somewhere in this range. It's just that we don't really know where. He's kind of one of those parabolic players where he could really be anywhere. Mm-hmm. But he probably actually belongs somewhere in the middle, which is around these early 20s.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so Jahdae Barron to the Packers. We talked about maybe comments or said Barron might fall, or he can go here. I think Terrell McMillan is. I put him to the Packers in my mock draft. He came in for a visit, and the Packers have drafted a lot of the players they brought in for visits. So he could be the number one receiver that Josh Jacobs was pining for. So. If McMillan were here, would you have him going to the Packers, or do you think maybe it's not a bad fit? Would you'd rather have a corner here instead?
If I'm the Packers, McMillan's the only wide receiver I'm considering. They've got a whole heap of guys who are typical wide receiver 2, speed bit part guys. They don't really have that alpha guy, and I feel like McMillan's the only true first round alpha style big bodied receiver that kind of gives them something they don't already have. So if he's here, I think they take him. In fact, I think even if he gets close to this spot, I could imagine them trading up to go get him. If he's not here, I don't think they go another wide receiver. I think they're more likely to go D-line or cornerback.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. I see them trading up for him like 4 or 5 spots. All right, so Nick Manawari to the Vikings. I talked about how I think the Vikings probably don't make this pick because then they have 4 selections. But safety is an area they could address. Like they have Harrison Smith, but he's nearing the end of his career, so they need a successor. I've had Malachi Starks going here. And Manawari is so talented, just physically, just great athlete. I think he goes high as 13th to the Dolphins. So like I think this is a great bargain. Would you agree? Like if he gets to 24?
I think this is a flaw for him. I think he should be going way higher than this. We know that safeties do tend to fall a little bit, especially in the first round, and that's why I've kind of got him going in this range. It's also really hard to mock a team of safety because it's so unlikely to happen. There's 2 of them, and they could go to like 10 different teams based on who just doesn't have the guy they like there. So they go for the player that provides the most value as the best player available. But the Vikings are the only team that really legitimately needs a safety. They lost Cam Barnum, which is disappointing because I enjoyed his dance moves. And Harrison Smith's close to retiring, so they need to fill that gap with somebody. Eamon Warrior, for me, is the clear number 1 guy, but I know that a lot of people have Starks higher. In fact, the odds for Eamon Warrior and Starks being first off the board are pretty much equal now.
Wow. Yeah, I would think Eamon Warrior would be the top pick. Yeah, I mean, Starks is a great player, but yeah, I mean, how could they let Bynum go with those dance moves? It's very, very shocking. Just don't get it. All right, so Texans taking Josh Simmons here. Yeah, I mean, Simmons has a torn patellar tendon, which has been a career ender for a lot of players. Hopefully, he can get over that. Yeah, I mean, given that they brought in a couple tackles, they don't have to play Simmons right away. They can almost redshirt him for 1 year, although given Trent Brown's injury history, it's probably going to be like 3 games. But yeah, I mean, Simmons makes sense for Houston, right?
Yeah, I think it makes all the sense of the world here. The weirdest report I heard was Amari and Hampton potentially going to this spot. Like,
Wow.
that seems absolutely wild for me because Joe Mixon's like nearly 30. He's only got 1 year left in his contract. But I don't know. This has to be O-line, surely. I have mocked them a D-lineman at times. I still think defensive tackle is a real issue for them, but there's just no one available in this mock. Whereas you've got guys like Simmons, you could have Gray Zabel here, you could have a Josh Connolly here, for example. I feel like there's enough guys that are going to fall into this general range that they can kind of just pick off whichever one makes most sense for them and continue retooling that O-line.
Yeah, back then wondering if Texas would take a guy with a patellar tendon issue after what happened to Tank Dell. I mean, I think if you want to answer it,
I think yes. I mean, I don't think teams can be too swayed by one guy getting an injury. I mean, look, Dell definitely had the issue, but he plays a very different position, and therefore he puts a different impact on his body. And I don't think they're equivalent.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, not like all injuries are different. Like, depending on like Simmons is doing well, looking good in his recovery, then I don't think it matters really much. So it really depends on every team's evaluation on Simmons. And I have him going the first round as well to the Eagles. But if teams are worried about Simmons with that injury, like he could be in a free fall. Second, maybe third round. I could see him really slipping if like every team is worried about him, which is a shame because if you're healthy, you'd be top 10 pick. So it just really sucks. But yeah, hopefully he recovers. But as far as you were saying Hampton, people were saying Hampton was a possibility. I think like Bobby Slowick would be like the saddest person in the world if they took Hampton because he was just like run first all the time, no matter what. And like even when Joe Mixon was out, he's like we're gonna run Cam Akers into the ground, like first, second down, just put C.J. Stroud in 3rd and 8 all the time. So like if he had Hampton instead of Cam Akers, he probably would have his job still. But yeah, that's just Bobby Slowick for you. All right, so Maxwell Harrison going to the Rams. I also have him taking a corner. So yeah, I mean this is like whichever cornerback they want. So good luck trying to figure out who that's going to be. It could be Harrison, could be Trey Amos, could be Jahdae Barron, could be a bunch of other guys. Any thoughts on like why Harrison over the other corners?
He's just kind of the next guy on my board. I think they're going to like his speed. I think he offers them something a little bit different from what they have. Look, they haven't gone like a non-day 3 corner as long as I can remember. Admittedly, they haven't had a day 1 pick for most of the last 5 drafts, but it would be a little bit unusual for them to go cornerback here, which is why I've kind of avoided doing it for the most part. I think I've had like a Igbuka going here and guys like that, but at some point we do need to consider it's their highest need. Heston's just the next guy off my board, essentially, in this case.
That makes sense. Okay, 27. Here we go. Shamar Stewart to the Ravens. I am going 9 to the Saints. That's how wide his draft range is. Like, he's super athletic. The team is just drafting on athleticism, kind of like Al Davis used to do that in the day. Al Davis would love this guy. He'd be the Raiders 6th pick, like, for sure. But no, I mean, he could definitely fall to the Ravens. Ravens need edge rush. Just makes sense. Any other possibilities here from Baltimore if they don't want Stewart?
There was a report that came out the last day or two saying if there's no edge rush they like here, they'll go Schwettinger, the linebacker, which seems wild for first round. I know he's rising, but first round, having a second linebacker in there would really surprise me. But supposedly that's what they're going to do if there's no edge rusher here. I don't agree. I think they're probably going to go to whichever player has the most value according to them, and I doubt it's him.
Yeah, that would be very unlike Ravens. Like, they always draft like the best value. So we had a question here from a bag that says, I'm fairly confident Zabel will get into the first round, but I have no idea what team to give him to. Do the Rams make any sense? I like the Rams offensive line. What do you think about the Rams maybe taking Gray Zabel?
I don't think so. I think there was conversation they might need to replace their left tackle, but he re-signed, so I don't think that's likely to really make sense. And if they do, Zabel concerns me. Like, we talk about short arms with Will Campbell. Zabel has properly short arms, half an inch shorter than Campbell. So I don't think that really makes sense. I think there's some risk there, but there's like 5 or 6 teams that could take him. There was a report that came out this morning saying the Seahawks absolutely love him, for example. And I've mocked him as high as the Dolphins as well. But I could also see him dropping like all the way to the Chiefs. So I feel like it's anywhere between like 13 and 31.
I think they could the Rams to take him and put him at center. I know like Bo Limmer is like maybe their weak point of the offensive line. So he can play every position on the line. And I do think tackle, like, it seems to be less likely because of the arm length, as you said. So I think guard or center makes sense. Like, that's why I haven't going to the Chiefs, because they had Joe Thuney and like he was playing multiple positions. He could be like the next Joe Thuney for them. So Kansas City, to answer Bagger's question, you have Kansas City. I think the Rams do make sense. I think, but you could have the Dolphins taking him. The Eagles there. The Eagles are always down for an offensive lineman. There are, I feel like, Colts make sense. Like, as they need a guard after losing Will Fries. There's a bunch of teams that can take him. Seattle, as you said. You remember where that rumor came from? That Seattle likes Gray Zabel?
Yeah. It was Tony Pauline.
Okay. Interesting. So, okay. Magnus says Ravens typically take BPA, probably Starks or Pierce. Yeah, I haven't taken Pierce. I could see Starks for sure. They had to move Kyle Hamilton to safety from linebacker last year to really help the safety situation, because like they were getting burned all the time. And like that actually made the run defense worse, moving him back there. So I think that taking a safety and leaving Hamilton linebacker would really just help the Ravens for sure. And then John says Falcons and Rodgers. What is that? Did Aaron Rodgers sign with the Falcons or something? like what is this cryptic tweet, John? Can you help us out? Do you have any idea what this is about?
No.
Bills released ex-Falcon Marnie Rodgers. Okay. Really? I was like, did Aaron Rodgers sign with Atlanta? Because that makes no sense.
Yeah, I was about to say that's not even the right spelling of Rodgers. So something's going on here, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I was like, that would be like the weirdest signing of all time. Like Aaron Rodgers going to Atlanta, like the Penix like fall down the stairs or something. All right, so okay, so you have the line taking Donovan Ezaraku. Any edge rusher I think makes sense. We have JT Tuamalo in our mock drafts. We had Jack Sawyer before. All edge rushers all the time. Like when Aiden Hutchinson went down, they had to sign Zadarius Smith, and like he was good, but like he's still like wasn't great, and like he's an older player, so like they can't really count on him or anything. So it just makes sense to go edge rusher. So any thoughts to like Ezaraku here as far as like with the other edge rushers potentially available?
Yeah, look, I really like the fact that he's kind of like a natural complement to Hutchinson. He's a smaller speed guy. Hutchinson's a bit bigger relative to him. I feel like he's like a like a personality fit as well for that Dan Campbell idea of being hardworking, loving football, being committed to the team. I just feel like this makes so much sense. He might not even be here at this pick, I think, is probably the biggest concern for me, honestly.
Yeah, you could go earlier. I actually haven't going to this pick. Washington, you have the Redskins taking Matthew Golden. Golden's stock seems to be on the rise. Do you envision him going earlier, or do you think that's kind of BS that like the talk about him going earlier?
I don't know. I find it hard to trust, but we do see players rise all the time. I feel like surely teams aren't that sucked in by his 40 time. There must be something else going on here, but I didn't see it on the field. I do think he's going to go earlier than this, and yet it's impossible for me to mock into a team. There's no team where I look at them and think, oh, yeah, they could probably use a wide receiver. This makes sense. There was also a report came out, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Albert Breer or something like that, that says he expects the Commanders to take a wide receiver more so on day 2. So that would kind of scupper this anyway. But this is more of the fact that I'm just trying to get the right players into the first round rather than thinking this is a real fit.
Yeah, it makes sense. Oiler Titan says the Falcons will soon find out that Michael Penix is worse than Desmond Ridder. Oh, I don't know. I like Penix quite a bit. I don't know.
He'd have to throw with his right hand to be as bad as Desmond Ridder.
It's true. Desmond Ridder is pretty bad. Even if you're down on Penix, like, come on. Like, you can maybe come up with something better than you could have said Kirk Cousins from last year, like coming off the torn Achilles. Maybe you can make that case, but I like Penix, so Ridder is terrible. All right, so the Bills taking Malachi Starks. Talk about how the Bills like to draft positional value, which is not a safety, but given that there are not that many first-round caliber prospects, it makes sense to take a safety here because this is almost like the second round. I mean, this is probably just BPA for you, right? Best Buy Real.
Yeah, it is. It's trying to fit Starks into the first round somewhere where there's no natural fits. I have been mocking them like a proper run stuffing defensive tackle quite a few times, but there's no one that really feels like they go into the first round. There are quite a few that are kind of on that bubble that could slide up. Like I think Alfred Collins is not totally out of the question here, but I feel like they're probably going to be able to get someone in the second round at that spot, and therefore they go for Starks. They need to improve their run defense. I feel like the best way to do that is to get it, like fill the box with a good safety, get a better linebacker, and really sort out the D line. And then I feel like they'll be sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I've Collins going pretty close to the first round. I've been going 36 to Jacksonville, so 36-30 still, it's pretty much the same area. If the Jaguars don't take Graham, I think that's definitely a possibility. John says Bills just signed all-pro cornerback Trey White. They're fine. I actually meant to grade this. I forgot. I was so tired tonight, which I feel like I said that every night. But chasing two kids around who are 3 1/4 and under will just wear you out. I'm kind of like zonked by 8 o'clock. So I find myself like taking half-hour naps just as soon as they go to bed. I'm like passing out as I'm putting my son to bed. Like I sing them Twinkle Twinkle Little Star before bed, and I sometimes just like stop and he's like, Daddy, why'd you stop? And I'm like, Daddy fell asleep. And my son even like questioned me. He's like, Daddy, that's fake. I'm like no, I'm really tired. Trust me. So, because I'm says no one has signed Ridder yet. I guess I assume someone had. I just missed it. How sad. Yeah, I guess he is available. Huh? I haven't heard anything about him going anywhere. I was just checking my my free agency rankings Excel sheet, and I don't have him going anywhere. So, yeah, he's kind of fallen off, right? Weller says Penix had 3 first-round receivers at Washington to 2 to 3 first or second-round offensive linemen, and his passes were all over the place. Receivers having to make adjustments on his passes, strong arm but highly inaccurate. I mean, it's not like perfect or anything, but like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of college quarterbacks have great talents around them. Like, look at what Joe Burrow had in LSU. He had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like, do you knock him for that? Like, I don't think you should knock a player for having great talent at a school. But I mean, he's not perfect. But if you just look at how he performed last year compared to Kirk Cousins, like it was night and day. Like he was so much better. Now it was a small sample size, you could argue that, but I just think that the arrow is pointing up for Atlanta. What do you think?
I agree. I think he's fine. I think he's better than anyone maybe except Cam Ward, but probably even including Cam Ward in this class. I don't know that that's saying very much, but I certainly think he's a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL, given how much talent they should have around him at the Falcons with guys like London Pitts and Bijan Robinson. He should be successful, at least relatively. So it's just going to take him a little bit of time. He's ultimately still a rookie quarterback nearly. He's really only played half a season. Give him a little bit of time.
Yeah. You say Ritter's the backup with the Cardinals. That's not true. The Cardinals quarterbacks are Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett, and Clayton Tune. So he was with the Cardinals, but not anymore. He's a free agent. So he's still I see nothing. Yeah, he's not. He was last year. He's not anymore. All right. So final two picks. Gray Zabel goes to the Chiefs. So this is what I had talked about earlier. I mean, do you want to touch more on this because I already talked about it?
I nearly put him to the Texans. Actually, I find it really hard to fit in. We've talked about Zabel a whole heap. We know the Chiefs are probably going to take an O lineman, and it makes no sense. If a real value falls on the D line, if there's a great edge rusher they love, if there's a defensive tackle that falls here somewhere, I can imagine them taking them here. But other than that, I feel like it's got to be Zabel to this spot or another O lineman.
Yeah, and then the Eagles going James Pierce. Yeah, this is a very Eagles pick. I haven't taken Josh Simmons with Pierce off the board, but if Pierce is here, it makes a lot of sense. They lost Josh, and the Eagles always seem to have that player for them. And it's like, how the Eagles get this guy? It's like, well, the teams ahead of them made a better pick than what happened. But that's it's kind of the Eagles for you. Like, they're not perfect. They took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, but for the most part, they have drafted well. So it's kind of this would fall in line with that.
Yeah, good teams draft well. It's just what they do, and the Eagles taking whichever player falls here makes total sense. Pierce for me is falling, but obviously a lot of teams have character concerns with him. Same issue with Mike Green. I feel like ultimately, if you're a team like the Eagles, you can take the risk and back the talent.
Yeah. Oilers says I went to ASU. There's no defense in the Pac-10. Joe Burrow threw 60 touchdowns in SEC, basically NFL. Well, I'm not going to argue. I'm not. My argument is not like level competition. I was just arguing that you said that that Penix was overrated because he had great talent, a receiver in Washington. And I was just countering, saying that like so did Joe Burrow. I don't think you knock players for having like supreme talent around them. I mean, look at a lot of quarterbacks that come out. They've had great talent around them. So I don't think like that's a good argument. I do agree that the conference is definitely the better argument, but Penix did play in the Big Ten as well. He was with Indiana for a while, and he did really well there. So he did really well at two schools, so in two conferences. So I don't think that argument's sound either, but it is the stronger argument of the two. Okay, so let's go to your bookie mock draft. So this is basically looking at, this is yours. So why don't you intro? I don't know why I'm introing it. You tell me what this is.
It's your show. That's why you're introing it. Look,
yeah, I'm used to it, right?
Yeah. Done is in this case, I specifically just went to Bet365 because at least it's available somewhat in America. Most of the Australian bookies are only available in Australia, and I wanted something that's at least relevant. Basically, I just went, well, what is the best way to fit the picks to what the bookies say based on the odds they give? Unfortunately, they don't give odds on every single spot, and there are some situations where it really doesn't align with the odds. But basically, I've done my best to basically try to infer what the bookies think is most likely to happen. And then I've just listed every relevant odds that I can find on that pick and on that player. So that's not to say I'm saying that every single one of these odds is a good bet. I'm definitely not. Some of them are. But I'm definitely trying to give an idea of what the bookies think is most likely to happen in the first rounds coming up.
Okay, so let's go through these and try to find some props that we like. So Cam Ward is minus 10,000. If you want to include him in some parlays, go for it. But otherwise, I don't see any value here. Carter's 18-1. Don't take that. Travis Hunter. Hunter is minus 357. Carter's plus 275. I speculated plus 400, so I was kind of off there. And then Sanders is 14-1. And let's loop in the Giants with this too. So Carter is minus 303. Hunter's plus 325. Sanders is 4-1. So Sanders being 4-1 just seems off. Like they're not going to take him at 3. So like I said before, I think that a small bet on either Carter 2 or Hunter 3 makes sense because if Hunter goes 2, then Carter will go 3, or vice versa. So Hunter plus 325, I think it's worth a small bet. Or do you think I'm wrong? Like, what do you think about that?
No, totally agree. I think the odds of Sanders going at 3 is pretty much 0 now. So for that reason, you can take advantage of that and get the superior odds at 3. If you no matter which player you're going to bet, whether it's Carter or Hunter, that's a really bad combination of names. Carter or Hunter, then I would bet them at 3, not at 2.
Mm-hmm. We have some comments here. Ken McNeagle says Goff came out of the powerhouse of the University of California. What's your point? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that argument. Cassandra says, I'm so annoyed the state draft prop rules. I would have taken Campbell at New England 3-1. Well, you said he was 4-1 when you were on a couple of shows ago, right? He was 4-1.
Yeah, I put quite a bit on him at 4-1 a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, Cassandra says need a proxy just to see the odds, as you know. Well, yeah, I can't even see the odds. It's like I wish they would just at least show me so I could have driven to New Jersey. It's not that bad, not bad of a drive. It's 25 minutes if there's no traffic. And then I just hang out in the Tacony Palmyra and the Trenton Thunder baseball minor league baseball stadium parking lot. It's like I always sometimes see like a car drive by. Like I wonder if they're like, we should check that out. Maybe a drug deal is going on. I just want them to stop me one time and be like, no, I'm just betting here. But no, I'm really frustrated with this because as we move on to New England, you have Campbell at minus 200. That is heartbreaking because I wanted to get 3-1, 4-1. I was just I just didn't have time to drive to New Jersey. As I said, taking care of 2 kids is so draining, and plus I'm behind on site work as well. So I just didn't have time to get there. If I had access to it, I would have bet it already. I just couldn't. So Campbell's minus 200, Carter 5.5 to 1, Membu 6 to 1, Walker 8 to 1, Campbell first offensive lineman minus 182. Yes, I mean if you want to bet Campbell, just bet him minus 182. So yeah, this is like I said, depressing for me. Congrats on getting 4-1. I wish I could have gotten that. But there will be other draft props to bet. But yeah, this kind of sucks. So what can you do? I don't know.
Do you think there's any value in someone like a Walker in this spot? Like that's pretty high odds, and if they're not going to go O-line, they're probably going to go Walker.
I think they're going to go O-line. I had Membu going here. I think I would go Membu over Walker personally at 6 to 1. But I would be surprised at this point if it's not Campbell, just based on Charlie's info. New England is a strong spot for him. So we'll see what Charlie says on Tuesday. That's kind of like the other reason why I didn't go. Like, yeah, I mean, I could have made an excuse with my wife, just like, hey, I really need to go bet this draft prop. It's sounds so weird. She's like, well, do you need help? Do you need to go to Gamblers Anonymous? No, I could have done that. But that was the other thing. I was kind of waiting on Charlie's final word on Tuesday or Wednesday. If he gets into contact with me, and that's we'll do a show on next Wednesday, the day before the draft, and that'll be anything else I hear from Charlie, I'll report it then. Yeah. So that I was waiting on Charlie. So if he says something different, if he tells me Membu on Tuesday, I will drive straight to New Jersey and bet it right away. John says, do you know why states have different things you're allowed to bet on? Is it a fear of people having fun? I don't understand it. Pennsylvania canceled Rainmakers for me. I had to drive to New Jersey every week just to use my Rainmaker cards because the alternative was selling them, but I wasn't going to get full value for it. I'm so I might as well just keep using them. And again, it's not, if it was an hour drive, I probably would have sold it, but it was only 25 minutes. So I was it's fine. It's there and back plus me in the parking lot. It's I would actually time myself and see how fast I can get there and back. And I was 52 minutes or 51 minutes was my record. So it's less than an hour. It was okay. But yeah, I hate this. And, I hate this so much that when someone burned down or tried to burn down Josh Shapiro's mansion and it ended up being an anti-Semitic thing. But I was in the back of my head, I'm why did he do this? Is he because he wanted to bet draft props and he couldn't? It's is that a reason? It's that's the only thing that was the first thing that popped in my mind because I hate Pennsylvania laws, but at least we can bet here. There's some states you can't even bet at all. which is crazy. And then Las Vegas is the strangest one because you would think that you could bet anything in Las Vegas. When I showed up to this is 2 years ago, I was staying at Park MGM, which is very crappy casino. I wouldn't recommend it. Although they do have good restaurants, but otherwise they're pretty bad. But I went to the sports book, and the British Open was on at the time. I'm like, hey, do you guys have live odds for the British Open? And the guy looked at me like I had three heads. He's like, what? Like live odds? You can't do that here. I'm like, I can do that online though. And he's like, this is not online. Like, this is Las Vegas. It should be able to bet anything. So I actually went up to my hotel room to bet. And I know you can't bet like off, other books like FanDuel, DraftKings, but I thought you could bet BetMGM because I was staying at an MGM property, and it said no, you can't bet on BetMGM.com. I'm like, staying at Park MGM, I can't bet on BetMGM. This is so stupid. So anyway, I had a rant. I'm sorry. This is really frustrating.
Let it out. Let it all out.
I could keep going, but yeah. All right, a couple more comments before we move on. Bagger says my mock from last night had 13 picks in common with Ben's. Feeling a lot better about it now. Yeah, that's pretty cool that you guys have so many comments. Almost half the draft. Whaler says, "What'd you say?" Sorry.
I said you and me, Bagley. If we're going down, we're going down together. Let's fly together.
Exactly. Who will be better pro receiver, Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, or Higgins? I like Burden, but I like Egbuka. I'd say Burden and Egbuka very close, and then Higgins 1, 2, 3. What do you think?
I think Egbuka is for me. I think Higgins is way below them. I know there's some hype there, but Egbuka's better for me. Burden, he's going to be okay, but I don't think he's got the upside of Egbuka. And then Higgins, I think he's highly unlikely to be a very good pro receiver.
Yeah. John's saying we should be like Australia and have no states. Or I think we should. Well, I think we should have no federal government and just only have states. What do you think about that, John? And Walt, go ahead.
To be clear, we do have states and they do make laws. It's just that they don't legislate things like gambling. They just legislate less important stuff. I just think gambling's very important. But you know what I mean? Like that, our federal government legislates a lot more stuff than in the states.
Well, we have to have an Australian question. Well, how many states do you have? Because I had no idea.
We have 6 states and 2 territories.
Oh,
so our territories function essentially identically to the states. One of our territories is essentially like DC, only it functions more like a state, but it's about the same size. And then the Northern Territory, which is makes up 20% of the country, is technically not a state, it's a territory. So it's a little bit complicated. And then obviously we have overseas territories and bits of Antarctica and stuff like that. But functionally 6 states and 2 territories.
Okay. Well, you learn something new every day. I had no idea.
Not like Canada.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. John says, Walt, the day after 9/11, I could get a good overline on the Jets win total this year. Yeah, that was the Jets. Yeah, they knocked out on Tom Brady the week after. It was kind of crazy how that happened. It was week 2, but it should have been a week 3 game. And I don't know if you remember that season, but they canceled week 2 and they postponed it to the end of the season. So all the week 2 games happened in the week 17. And funny enough, the Eagles and Buccaneers were scheduled to play week 2, but they were already locked into the playoff spots, and so they were slated to go against each other. So all the backups played. So that was it's kind of interesting how that happened. But yeah, that was the Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. Oilers says, is Jaden Higgins, Hakeem Butler 2.0 product of Iowa State receiving, or Michael Pittman 2.0? Any thoughts on Higgins? I mean, he didn't make it into our first round, but what do you think about Jaden Higgins?
I have concerns. I feel like he's this kind of player that kind of sits somewhere between a wide receiver build and a tight end build, where you're like, what are you actually really getting here? He just seems like tweeners very rarely go particularly well in the NFL, and he just feels like he fits somewhere in that slot rather than being a legit big-bodied receiver. Yeah,
who's the tight end prospect? Was that Muhammad Massaquoi? I can't remember who it was. He came from Michigan. I can't remember the name, but I thought he would be a tight end, and some team drafted him as a receiver, and he just didn't pan out that way. I feel like that might be Higgins' fate. He's so big, but can he get separation? I just don't know. It's tough. Kim McNeagle says we've elected a bunch of lawyers who've made so many laws to make almost anything illegal, so the police can arrest you for anything like breathing. Yeah, I don't like it as a libertarian through and through. I hate the stuff. Devin Funches, yes, that's it. There you go. Thank you, Bagley. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Massaquoi went to Georgia, I think. Yeah, Funches was the Michigan guy. I thought he was going to be a tight end. I really thought he should just be a tight end. I don't think they never tried him a tight end. They always tried him at receiver, and he failed there.
I think he eventually did convert to tight end with another team. I can't remember who.
Okay.
But guys like him and Kelvin Benjamin and stuff like that, it very rarely goes well.
Yeah, Benjamin had that one good year, and then that was it. It just disappeared after that. I just subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, Anthony. Really appreciate it. Okay, let's move on. Mason Graham here is -152 to go to the Jaguars. Membu's +40-75. Jalen Walker 6-1. Man, that looks juicy. I was talking about that before. I think I might bet that. We'll see. We'll see what Charlie says. Genty 8 +850. Graham under 5.5 is -135. Over 5.5 is +105. So I think over 5.5 looks pretty good for Graham. I know he's definitely a possibility for Jacksonville. That's the only place where you can go. So like if he just makes it past Jacksonville, that's it. Because we pretty much know who the top 4 prospects are going to be. So it just makes so much sense to kind of fade Graham at 5.5. So yeah, I mean, any thoughts to any of these other odds here?
I really like Membu here. I feel like that's pretty good. I really like Walker here. I just feel like the odds on Graham are too low to really go anywhere near them, and that means that everything else is brought into play.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And then asking, what do you think about Za Frazier? He's super fast. I don't know if like that translates. Like he's probably going to be round 4 prospect, but yeah, I think I don't know. Any thoughts on him? I feel like he's just like a mid-rounder guy.
I feel like he profiles as like a backup kind of guy at best. I'd be very surprised if he turns into a good starter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Where's the other question? Okay, Harold Fannin, boom or bust. I'd lean more boom. He reminds me of Chris Cooley. He's a smaller tight end. Like he's gonna be like an H-back or so, but he could be a good weapon. He's not gonna block for anyone, but I think that he could be a decent weapon for a team. Any thoughts on Fannin? I think he probably goes second round, in my opinion, maybe third.
I think it depends on where he goes as to whether you can consider him a boom or a bust. If he goes anywhere near the first round, I think his odds of busting is pretty high. If he goes somewhere in the third round, then all of a sudden he could provide some real value. So wait to see where he drafts before we can really consider which is more likely.
Mm-hmm. So Jaden Higgins 4.4740. Like that doesn't always translate though. I kind of wonder what his athletic score was. He's like his agility scores, which is like I think they're pretty mediocre. So that's what I would look at more. His ability to create separation, just that way, rather than like straight line speed. So I was never like a big fan of 40 times. Like John Sanders pointing at Jerry Rice around a 4.71. Like 40 times really don't mean that much. Like I think the shuttle times and the 3-cone times mean so much more. And it's really a shame that they don't get timed. Well, I mean, they did get timed, but like they don't get timed like as publicly as the 40 time. Like everyone just watches the 40. It seems so stupid because like I think like I would much rather just watch the 3-cone and the shuttle time, like, and just forget about the 40. I know that's not the sexy thing. But like that just means so much more predictive for how players can pan out in the NFL.
Yeah, like a 40 time is not really telling you as much as you think. It's like watching sprinting. We've got a sprinter in Australia from my hometown, in fact, who's already running under 10 seconds and he's 17. But his 40 time's really slow and his 10 time is really bad. He just gets up to speed. The same thing happens in the NFL. There's heaps of players who in the last 20 of that 40 are going to look absolutely fantastic. But how often are they running 40 yards in one direction in the NFL? There's probably 1 or 2 routes that actually do that. For the most part, they're making small movements, and that's what's really valuable. So I think the 40 time is massively overblown.
Yeah, for sure. Although Al Davis really loved it. Let's see. I'm saying Higgins not very much like Funches. Yeah, I'm just saying like the receiver tight end tweener. Like, I mean, Funches was bigger, but still, I was saying like that comparison. Mason Graham's built like the Kool-Aid guy. Yeah, we're some team called him the Marshmallow Man. I like Kool-Aid guy. Although that's kind of Andy Reid's thing, yeah.
He's the Michelin man. He's like
Michelin Man. Yeah, I like that.
yeah.
Yeah. With asking about Travis Hunter, do you see him as elite corner or elite receiver? Um, I think I would say I think receiver more so than corner. Um, but it's so difficult. I don't know. I know the Browns said they think he's a receiver. So I don't know. I think I lean that way, but it's so close. That's why I have so much difficulty projecting him for like fantasy. Like I just don't know what stats to give him. And I know you're the fantasy guy. I mean, you're top 10 in accuracy every year. Any thoughts on Hunter? Like how you're going to project him?
I find it tough because if I'm drafting Hunter, I'm drafting him as a cornerback. I feel like that's where the most value lies, and you kind of put him out there occasionally as a wide receiver. You train him up properly as a cornerback, and then he can kind of play occasionally as a wide receiver. It's really hard to do it the other way around. Like, it's really hard to be a starting wide receiver and play occasional snaps as a cornerback. That doesn't really make sense. It's not like you can scheme up and decide exactly what you're going to have to do when you're playing as a cornerback. You kind of need to be able to do whatever's given to you. So I feel like it makes more sense to start him as a cornerback and play him occasionally as a wide receiver. And I feel like that's probably where he ends up no matter what the team say. Either that or he's just a starting wide receiver and he's hardly played at cornerback as well at all. I know that teams are saying right now, oh, yeah, we'll use you as a wide receiver, etc. But they kind of need to keep him happy to get him in. But I feel like over time, he's going to turn into more of a cornerback. And for that reason, for fantasy, I'm probably not going to rank him above guys like a Genty, above guys like in a Superflex, like a Cam Ward in Superflex, for example, is going to have a reasonable amount of value. Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland, I think, are going to have quite a bit of value this year. I feel like you're probably going to end up getting Hunter below these guys. If he does turn out to be a true wide receiver, you're going to get massive value on him, though.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to see what they do. Although, if it is the Browns, probably the wrong thing. So there's that. Chiefs like Fannin quite a bit. Or sorry, here, Bagley, please tell me where you heard that. I'd love to see that rumor. Let's see. Higgins has a 987 RAS score, which is fantastic. It's out of 10. So relative athletic score, 987. But if you look at that closely, you'll see that the reason his RAS score is so high is because his 40 in comparison to his size is great. But like I was saying before, like 40 doesn't mean all that much. Like it's so overblown. If you just look at the specifics in that RAS score, if you just look at the agility scores that he has, they're just mediocre. So just keep that in mind. I think like you need to dig deeper, like rather than just look at the RAS score overall, just look at the specifics. I think that's definitely something to consider. Why not Tyler Warren to the Patriots at 4? Well, they need offensive line and they love Will Campbell. So, I mean, that's part of the reason. And like the other is like, man, Tyler Warren at 4 when Bowers went 13 seems crazy to me. Like that even Bowers 4 last year would have been early because you have the 3 quarterbacks and then you had Marvin Harrison Jr. and then you had Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt. Like I think at least 7 would have made sense, you know. But like that's just way too early for a tight end, even though we did have Kyle Pitts going 4. So what do you think about this?
I think Tyler Warren is more like Kyle Pitts the last year or two than Kyle Pitts of his rookie season and in college. I feel like that would be way too early for him. I personally think that taking him anywhere in the top 10 is too early. He's not Brock Bowers. He's not even really like a Sam Laporta. He's the tight ends that we used to talk about like 3 or 4 years ago. It's going to take some time to develop. And you can't go taking him that early and expecting him to perform straight away. And there's plenty of risk with him as well, because I don't really think he's necessarily the well-rounded prospect that we think he is. He's not an elite receiver, but he's also not a particularly good blocker. So he's kind of just fine. So I think that's too early based on what we actually see from him on the field.
Yeah. This other comment is, where was it? Funches 5.26 and Benjamin 3.49. Whereas actually Funches had a faster 3-cone time than Higgins. So again, just look at the agility scores rather than anything like that. Okay, so anyway, let's get off of this for a second here. So the Raiders are Genty -152, Membo 6-1. Will Johnson 7-1 looks fantastic. Might bet that. Depending on what Charlie says on Tuesday. Jalen Walker 7-1. Genty over 9.5 is +215 to Chicago's +270. Anything you're betting here? Because like I said, Willie Johnson 7-1 looks great.
Yeah, look, I've got a little bit of money on Willie. I've got a little bit of money on Membu as well. I feel like Genty probably goes there, but I feel like the odds indicate that if you put a little bit of money on both of those guys, there's a good chance you're going to get a payoff. And if you do, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right, so Jets, Membu is -111, Tyler Warren 3-1, Mason Graham 7-1. I have that in my mock draft, so maybe I should bet that. Simmons 8.5-1, Membu under 6.5 is +300. Jets defensive line 7.5-1, so I guess that's better than just Mason Graham. If they like, Kenneth Grant, for example. Yeah, that's what I'm looking to bet. Jets defensive line 7.5-1, unless you hear something different from Charlie on Tuesday.
Yeah, that is absolutely what I have bet. I feel like there's a chance they trade down and then get a different defensive lineman, and all of a sudden that brings in that value really nicely.
Yeah, Jalen Walker to the Panthers +150. Micah Williams +350. McMillan 5-1. No, that's weird odds. I know you mentioned that before. Mason Graham 8.5-1. Panthers defensive line is that slash edge is +105, and linebacker is +150. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I have a growing feeling that Walker's gonna be off the board. So like either Williams or Graham just makes sense. I have like we have Panther sources. So like I think someone even pointed out Charlie's gotten like the last 12 Panthers picks correct, or it's not 12. It's like some insane number of Panthers picks correct. So I can't wait for that intel. I hope they don't say Walker because like I said, I think Walker's gonna be off the board. But if he is there, then he makes sense. If you really think he's gonna be there, what are you looking to bet here at 8?
I have already bet a little bit this. I got Walker at +300 or something like that at one point in time. Actually, I got linebacker at +300 originally because I think everyone was forgetting that Walker's considered an edge, and so the odds on linebacker was fantastic. But obviously, that's evened out now. At this point, I'm not touching this. I think we don't really have a good idea of what's going on here, and I don't think there's any value with any of those picks.
Yeah, like I said, this is something to check in on next week when we Charlie on Tuesday, and then the other show I was talking about on Wednesday. All right, so Shador Sanders 9. Safety is.
Sorry, that's their initials. I couldn't fit them all in.
Okay, I got it. Shador Sanders 2-1, Jackson Dart 5.5-1, Tyler Warren 8-1. What's TO?
And then that's Shador Sanders going to New Orleans.
Okay. So Shador Sanders to New Orleans -111. So the Giants 3-1, Steelers 5-1. This looks pretty good. Sanders second quarterback -200, over 8.5 -333. Do we have a number on Shamar Stewart, because that's also SS.
Ooh, yeah. The odds for the 9th pick, at least for Bet365, came out literally like 2 hours ago. So those numbers on that top line are fresh. Shamar Stewart is +1,200.
Not bad. That's the type of guy they like. I might bet a small bet on that. I mean, this is not source based, but it is history based. That's what they like to do. Kimmy Go asking what are the odds of Denver take a running back. We actually had that. Well, it's because you asked the question. We'll skip ahead real quick. Denver to take a running back is +110, as it's seen on the screen here. So there you go. I can't make you go. Let me know if you think that's it's a good number. All right, let's go back to Chicago at 10. We have what is this? The Josh and Genty at +350. Tyler Warren 4-1. Kelvin Banks 10-1. Warren to be top 10 is -1. Is that plus or minus? Is that +162? This is -62. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tyler Warren to Indianapolis +160. Interesting that like he's top 10 -162, and it's the best odds are for him to go to the Colts. Strange. Jets +280, Bears +350. Yeah, I mean, we might have some potential here if like, man, it's a problem. Like we never have Bears intel, so but yeah, I mean, if we can just like eliminate like just eliminate some stuff. Like if we hear like Warren's going to go top 10, maybe like Genty will look better. Yeah. So what are you thinking here for any potential bets?
Firstly, I agree with you. The Warren odds are wild. It makes no sense. It's kind of like they're saying he probably goes to Indianapolis, but if he doesn't, he's going somewhere in the top 10 or vice versa. It's like there's two things. He goes top 10 or he goes to Indianapolis, and they're the only spots they think he can go. It's really strange. I have mostly bet on O-line or Kelvin Banks at this spot because I feel like it's looking more and more like Campbell and Member were going to be gone somewhere in the top 9. And then it makes perfect sense for them to go O-line for Chicago. So Banks at plus 1,000 looks amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looks pretty good. They could definitely do it, even though they signed 3 guards. All right, so speaking of Banks, he's 11 here. Offensive line plus 180, defensive line plus 180, cornerback 3-1, linebacker 8.5-1. Banks 10 is plus 240. Second offensive line 7-1. Banks under 13.5 is minus 161. Over 13.5 is plus 130. So, if you really believe that the Niners are going to go lineman, then you could bet both offensive line and defensive line to profit. So you get plus 80 depending on no matter what happens. But you and your mock had Will Johnson going here, so cornerback 3-1. Have you bet anything here?
Yes. I bet a little bit on cornerback and a little bit more on edge when the edge odds were a little bit higher. At one point, they were plus 275 or something like that. So I bet it at that point. And the cornerback odds, I bet at plus 300, just a small amount, just to kind of ease off the D line. Because I do feel like Banks is probably not going to go here.
J2K says, don't take Warren to Bears. That's all smoke. Yeah. So Flip says, what do you think about Warren to Dallas if he lasts that far? And I'm looking at Dallas's odds as we can transition to them. Receiver plus 125, cornerback plus 425, offensive line plus 450, defense line plus 550. Where's running back here? That's kind of odd that we don't have running back odds. McMillan is first receiver minus 182. McMillan top 10 plus 400. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going top 10, but yeah, so do you have any odds on running back for Dallas? And also, what do you think about Tyler Warren, as Flip asked?
So running back, they are plus 800, and tight end, they are plus 1,500. I have bet running back to them a couple of times, and also wide receiver back when the odds were like plus 200 something or other. But for me, I think running back's the most interesting. It's probably not Genty, but you can imagine a situation where they trade back and get Hampton. You can imagine a situation where Genty falls and they trade up to get Genty. I can't imagine Genty at 12, but I certainly think there's plenty of other options here.
Yeah, and look, we talked about it. Like the Panthers could move down because they don't have a pick until 57. Like Dallas could move up from 12 to 8. I don't think it's going to be that expensive given that this draft class isn't great. They could swap with the Saints. Like if the Saints really want Sanders, they could probably take him at 12. So why not move down 3 spots and Dallas can move ahead of Chicago if Genty makes past the Raiders. So yeah, I think 8-1 you said, right? For running back, like that's really good. I think I might bet that as well. Who do you have the best sources other than the Panthers? I mean, you look at the Patriots, the Jaguars, Raiders, Cardinals, Bengals, Lions. Who else? Cowboys. Cowboys lesser source, but it's still a source. I say Cardinals. I think I did. And then there's some others. I don't know, like Falcons. There are definitely more. I mean, this is mostly Charlie's, not mine. I've like a couple of sources. Charlie has like half a league he talks to. It's insane. So yeah, we'll have, like I said, we're gonna have some great data next week. I can't wait for it. Okay. Will Johnson going to the Dolphins here. Offensive line is plus 130 though. Cornerback plus 220. Defensive line 3-1. Safety 7.5-1, which is interesting because I think they could definitely go safety, but really the offensive line is just the biggest issue after Armstead retired. Johnson's second cornerback is it minus 270? And then Johnson's top 10 is plus 170. Okay. Anything here stand out?
I mean, firstly, worth noting, I had to give them Johnson here because his odds of going in this range is so high that this is the team that's just most likely to take a cornerback. I've had to do that a couple of times where I give a team a position they're less likely to take simply because the player needs to go somewhere. I have bet on some stuff, but not recently. At one stage, safety was like plus 1,100. I bet on it then. I still think it's interesting at plus 750, but I'm probably leaving this one alone. I think it's just so hard to predict what the Dolphins are going to do.
Agreed. Yeah, we don't have good sources there. So Oilers says Michael Williams doesn't have great stats, but he put a number on Banks and Paris Johnson. Yeah, I love Michael Williams. I think he should be top 10. I think he might fall, but if Jalen Walker's off the board at 8, I think that he could definitely be the pick there. And I thought he'd be a good fit for Chicago too. I'm kind of like wondering if I'm going to put Williams to Chicago, but they did sign an edge rusher, so that's what's giving me some pause. But I think like fit wise, I think that is really a good fit. All right, so Colts tight end plus 105. I would imagine Tyler Warren has something to do with that, but you also had Colson Loveland there. Offensive line 3-1, safety 7-1, linebacker 8-1. Loveland under 19.5 is minus 250. Over 19.5 is 2-1. Loveland first head end is plus 450. I would consider over 19.5. I know you have him to 14, and he could go to Seattle at 18. But like I was saying, that like outside of Indianapolis and Seattle, no team in the teams needs a tight end. So if he makes it past the Colts, you're looking at Seattle only, and like Seattle really needs offensive line help. So if he makes it past both teams, then your bet's going to win. So I think that's something worth considering. So yeah, does anything stand out to you with this pick?
Yeah, I have bet the over 19.5 a couple of times. I think that's the most logical one to go here. I think O-line's interesting, but the odds have kind of tightened up a little bit, and that kind of puts me off a bit. But I think I would put a little bit more on O-line, and definitely the over 19.5 makes sense because there's really only a couple of landing spots that are possible for him.
Okay. All right. So Atlanta, Michael Williams defensive line is minus 250. That's high. It's a high number for a 15 pick. Cornerback 6-1. I could easily see this being a cornerback. Linebacker 6-1. Offensive line plus 850. So yeah, I mean this is a team we're going to have some intel on, I imagine, come Tuesday. Michael Williams under 15.5 minus 227. Over 15.5 is plus 175. Williams top 10 is plus 320. Which I think is interesting. Like I said, Chicago's as landing spot. Maybe the Saints. Maybe the Panthers. So you have kind of 3 outs there. I would consider betting a small amount on that. Anything else stand out to you here?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said earlier, Michael Williams, I like him more than Jalen Walker. I think he's arguably the best non-cutter rush prospect in this group. So for that reason, I would go Williams top 10. The rest, I mean, the odds are way too tight for D-line.
Yeah. Gray Zabel to Arizona. So defensive line is 2-1, offensive line 2.2-1. Cornerback plus 340, linebacker 5-1. And then Gray Zabel, this stands out to me. First round's minus 1,000. I don't know if you heard that I asked Charlie what he thought the odds would be, and he guessed like minus 200. And I was like, no, minus 1,000. He was shocked by that. That's insane. But look, I mean, there's been speculation that he's going to go in the teens potentially. Like we had that rumor with Seattle. He could go as high as Miami. And Daniel Jeremiah said he's a first round lock, so maybe that has something to do with it too. I think he's definitely going first round, but minus 1,000 just. It's so hard to bet that unless you're like putting it into a parlay or something, which I don't know. I feel like there's no reason to do that. So what are your thoughts here for Arizona?
I have bet both D-line and cornerback, but the odds have tightened up since I did that. I still think cornerback's the most interesting. I think cornerback really shouldn't be that far off O-line, for example. D-line obviously makes the most sense for them, but O-line could definitely happen. Cornerback could happen. Anything in this range makes sense, so I find it near impossible to bet the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's pretty tight there. All right, so we move to the second half of the opening round. Mike Green to the Bengals. Defensive line is minus 156. Cornerback plus 340. Safety 5-1. Offensive line 8-1. We don't have a receiver as John Sanders speculated. Green under 17.5 is minus 141. Over 17.5 is plus 110. I love the plus 110 there. Green first round is minus 1,200. That's crazy. I would love to see what the not first round is. I don't know if they have those odds, but I would be interested in seeing that. But like I said, it only takes one team to fall in love with the player, and that could happen. So what are you betting here for the Bengals?
I mean, for starters, John Sanders, I can tell you can get wide receivers at plus 10,000 to 1. So just like make it rain, baby, make it rain.
Oh man, just bet the max there.
Insane. I did bet safety back when it was like plus 900, and I bet D-line back when it was closer to evens, but I'm not touching anything else here. I think green's an interesting one because you can get really differing odds based on what book you go to, but I did bet the over at one point in time. It has come in a little bit, but I think the over on green's interesting. The problem is there are those three teams in this range, and one could still jump up, and green kind of feels like one of those players that can go there, so plus 110 is just a little bit too tight for me.
Yeah. I think so. We'll see what Charlie says, but I think plus 110 was pretty good. I wish it was better though. John says, "Damn, I need to move to drive to Ohio now. Those are great Bengals receiver odds. Burrow's the de facto GM." Yeah, that would be funny. All right, so anyway, Seattle, Matthew Golden. So offensive line is minus 111, receiver 4-1, tight end plus 650, safety 7-1. Golden under 17.5 is minus 111. Same with the over, and then Golden first receiver is plus 150. Was McMillan's minus 180, right? Okay, yeah. So okay, for a second there, I was like, wasn't McMillan plus 180? Like, this seemed like too good to be true. But never mind. Anything you're thinking here for Seattle?
Look, I mean, honestly, we know this is probably going to be O-line based on the odds. It's just that there is no team that is favored to take a wide receiver outside the Cowboys. We know someone will. It's just it's really hard to work out who exactly is going to take a wide receiver, and that's going to be a nightmare for us trying to predict what's going to happen. I put a little bit on wide receiver, but only a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, they definitely could take a receiver. Cooper Kupp is not going to work out. He's going 7th round in those best ball drafts that I do. And I don't understand at all.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we were like, what is everyone saying that they're saying Cooper Kupp to the Seahawks is like this amazing bargain, even though they're paying him a massive amount of money? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I can't wait to do some best ball drafts with you in the summer when you're available. That would be a lot of fun. But yeah, right now that's it's kind of nuts. Anyway, Jihad Campbell to the Buccaneers. Defensive line's plus 155, linebacker plus 180, cornerback 4-1, offensive line 7-1. Campbell over 18.5 is minus 161, under 18.5 is plus 130. Campbell first linebacker 5-1.
Jalen Walker's the number one.
Oh, he qualifies linebacker, right. Okay, I was about to say, like, I need to drive New Jersey right now. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so are you betting anything for Tampa?
I originally had quite a bit on linebacker before the odds came in. Then I just kind of like took a little bit of D-line just so I could get a little bit of both sides. So as long as it goes D-line or linebacker, I'm going to make a fair amount of money. And I feel like that's a good way of doing things because I'd be very surprised if they don't go front seven.
I agree. Yeah. Unless like someone crazy falls, but I think you're right. I think you're going to win no matter what there. Tony says, I'm calling it Travion Henderson to Denver at 20. Perfect fit for Peyton. Well, I said this before. Cecil Lammy thinks Quinshon Judkins to Denver in the second round. So he's always on point with Denver stuff. So I would trust him. I do like the fit though. I think you're onto something there. Speaking of Denver, Omarion Hampton is the Denver pick. Running back is plus 110. Receiver plus 350. Defensive line plus 550. Offensive line plus 750. Hampton over 19.5 is minus 200. Offensive under 19.5 is plus 160. Hampton's second round is minus, second running back is minus 300. Okay. Those aren't great odds for Hampton going over 19.5, but I do think it'll happen. Although, like I said, we could see something weird with Dallas, so maybe that's where he goes. So anything you're thinking here?
I put a tiny bit of money on Genty to go to the Broncos at like plus 2,200, and it's still at plus 2,200. Simply because I can imagine a situation where they do what you talked about earlier. They trade up with the Saints. The Saints move down. They take Sanders or Dart, whoever they want. And then Genty goes to the Broncos. I think there's a better than 5% chance of that happening. Anything else here, it's just impossible to bet. I think the odds are pretty much lined up here properly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what number did you say for Genty to Denver?
Plus 2,200.
That's crazy. That's a great number. Yeah, I mean that could definitely happen, that trade. John says Mike Green won't make it past the Chiefs at 31. Then, I think that's a good idea. I think we might mock Green to the Chiefs. That makes sense. Flip says some of these odds are crazy. Like, how can the book be that sure about who's getting drafted 20th overall? Well, they're not. I mean, they're looking at different mock drafts. They're looking at like what Mel Kiper says. McShay, all the mock drafters, Andrew Jeremiah. I mean, I'm sure they look at what we do. The Circa Sportsbook Manager follows me on Twitter, so I imagine that like they look at a number of mock drafts and. They listen to like what all the top draft experts say. I mean, like he's had the most accurate mock drafts 4 out of the last 10 years. So they have to look at what he says. So yeah, I mean, it's like they don't know. It's not like they have inside info, but they could probably make good numbers. And like if they weren't making money on this, they wouldn't be posting it. So I feel like a lot of people just don't know how to bet the draft. But luckily, we have a secret weapon here, and he will be on Tuesday. So I can't wait for that. All right, so Pittsburgh, Jackson Dart, defensive line is plus 210, quarterback plus 250, cornerback plus 450, offensive line plus 550. Dart over 24.5 is plus 150. Why 24.5? Like, I mean, that's Minnesota and Houston. That's so weird. Second quarterback is plus 220. First round quarterbacks under 2.5 plus 350. I think I would. We talked about that before. I like that. Any idea why this 24.5 and who do you like for Pittsburgh?
I think maybe the idea that the Vikings might potentially trade out of the first round and someone might come up. Yeah. That's the only thing I could possibly think of here. The other one I forgot to mention because I only thought of it this morning is you can get plus 500 for him going to the Steelers, and there's a lot of buzz around him going to the Steelers in the last 24 hours or so. So that's Sanders, going to the Steelers in the last 24 hours or so. So I can imagine a situation where he goes to the Steelers, and that's what I'm betting. I bet that this morning, in fact, plus 500 for Sanders getting Steelers.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, I think it's definitely trending that way. He said himself, if you want me, you have to move ahead of Pittsburgh. So, and the Pittsburgh info has been out there. It's like, if you look hard enough, you can find it. All right. So Derek Harmon to the Chargers. Defensive line plus 140, tight end 3.5 to 1, which is interesting given the Loveland connection there. Receivers 5 to 1, offensive line plus 550. Harmon first round is minus 833. Do you agree that tight end plus 350 looks pretty good?
Look, I put all my money on it when it was plus 600, and I have got my fingers crossed. Like, I still love it at plus 350. I feel like tight end is such a nice fit there. Loveland in particular to the Chargers really just makes a lot of sense. To me, it's got to be that or D-line. Anything else would be a surprise to me.
That's a great number, 6 to 1. Tony says, real interesting. The Simmons is minus 950 going first, yet most mocks have him low in the first, if at all, such as Kansas City at 31. I have Eagles 32. It's not like he's a big name to the public either. Yeah, that's kind of wild that he's minus 950. So if you can get the opposite, that'd be pretty good. But usually they don't offer that. Oilers says early in the second, Titans have the 35th pick. Better to get receiver there as they need many, or edge as they also have a need. Yeah, it's a sweet spot to get both. You could see like Izaraku falling there. You could see Mike Green falling there. And we have a bunch of receivers like Buka, Luther Burden. They are all possibilities to go 35. So I feel like the Titans are in a good spot at 35. Yeah, and John says, I think Dart fits the Saints better with Kellen Moore, and Sanders makes sense because Arthur Smith thought Russell Wilson was good. That's a nice comment, John. That got me at the end. You were saying that before, then. You thought that Kellen Moore having Dart would make more sense, right?
Yeah, it's a better fit, and that's really the only thing that scares me about not betting a lot more on the over 24.5 for Dart.
Yeah. Pierce could be at 35. Yeah, that's another one. Okay, so we move to the Packers. Defense line is even odds. Cornerback plus 170. Offensive line plus 550. Receiver is 7 to 1. That's crazy because McMillan it sounds like he's going to fall, and they brought him in for a visit. Man, that looks great. Barron over 17.5 is minus 250. Under 17.5 is plus 200. Yeah, over makes sense. It's not a good number. Barron's second quarterback plus 210. It's okay. I guess they're not counting Hunter there. Which they are.
Uh-huh.
That's weird. What? Like, What are Will Johnson's odds for being the second? We had that before,
Like,
didn't we? Let's see.
yeah, them like that they've got. They used to be
Minus
minus
270.
139, but now they're
Minus 270.
minus 270. There you go.
Okay. That seems weird. Okay. Anyway, what do you think about my receiver 7-1 for the Packers?
Love it. Already have money on it. I added it plus 750, and I also put a little bit on cornerback as well.
Okay. That's pretty crazy to me. 7-1. Insane. Okay. Anyway, so Minnesota here. Cornerback plus 180, safety plus 260, offensive line plus 350, defensive line plus 375. That looks okay. Monowari for safety minus 116 first round, safety over 1.5 is minus 400, under 1.5 is plus 300. I think there will be two, but yeah, I mean, one could fall out for sure. I think they're both highly thought of enough to go in the first round, but minus 400 is not great. Again, like I think Minnesota is very likely to trade out of 24, so I'm not like enthused to bet this because like they could look at a defense alignment, but then they could trade down, and then maybe there's no defense alignment available. So, and are you playing anything here from Minnesota?
I've got a little bit on safety and a little bit on D-line, but both of those odds have come in. I think D-line's still a little bit interesting there. It is to me a need. I was mocking them defensive tackles very early in the process, and I still think that's something they require, although I do think secondary is more likely. Regardless of what happens, I don't think this pick's going to happen here. So it's really less a case of looking at what players are available and more a case of looking at what they need. And I feel like that's a bigger need for them.
Okay. All right. So we go to the last slot here. Well, there might be more. Yes, there's no more. Okay, well, last slide for this mock draft at least. Egbuka to the Texans. Offensive line is minus 263. Receiver 4-1. Defensive line 5.5 to 1. Running back is 22 to 1. We mentioned that earlier. Egbuka under 29.5 minus 161. Over 29.5 is plus 130. That's kind of interesting. Over 29.5. It's not bad. I don't know if I bet it, but it's kind of stands out. First round receiver over 2.5 is minus 250. Under 2.5 is plus 200. Okay, so does anything stand out to you here?
I find the under 2.5 receivers in the first round being plus 200 interesting because I think there is a chance Egbuka falls. And likewise, I find the over 29.5 interesting. I feel like he's the most likely one to fall. This is a really weak receiver class. I don't know that the guys around the edge of the first round really badly need a receiver. And I don't know that someone like the Titans needs to jump up to get somebody. So I think they're the most interesting in this spot here. I did at one spot bet D-line here, and I still think it's an interesting bet, even though the odds have come in, because I think that they've already done quite a bit for their O-line. If the right players aren't here, I could imagine them going D-line instead.
Okay, so the Rams, Harrison, cornerback plus 250, offensive line plus 250, defensive line 6-1, tight end plus 650, first round cornerbacks under 4.5 is minus 303, over 4.5 plus 225. Yeah, I think it's going to be stretched for 5 cornerbacks to make the first round. Harrison first round is minus 192. Yeah, I mean, you like anything here? You're talking about cornerback in the first round, maybe.
I mean, there's nothing particularly exciting about betting something that's like minus 300, but I can't imagine 5 cornerbacks. That seems insane. Like I would say there's like a 5% chance of that happening or less, not a 25% chance of it happening. So I do like the under 4.5, even though it's not very exciting. Good for a multi potentially.
Yeah, you could parlay that. Yeah.
Sorry, parlay. Yeah, I've got the American notation.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant. Yeah. You could definitely put that in a parlay or something. Okay, so Ravens, Shamar Stewart, defensive line even, offensive line 3-1, cornerback plus 475, safety plus 550. I kind of like that. Stewart first round is minus 2,000. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it does.
So that's pretty crazy. So any thoughts on this?
Not really. I put a little bit on D-line at one point in time just because it does seem to be the direction they're going in, but the odds aren't exactly particularly tasty.
Yeah. What do you think about safety plus 550?
I think it's interesting, but I feel like most would be saying that the safeties aren't going to be here by this point in time. I feel like Starks potentially could be, but even if he is there so much value that they have to take him? I think it makes sense, but I think I'd want more than 550, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so Izaraku to the Lions. Defensive line minus 200. Offensive line plus 210. Receiver 12-1. Cornerback 15-1. I think receiver 12-1 is kind of interesting. They were looking at receivers. I know they were earlier last year as but Terry and Arnold fell to them. They didn't expect that to happen. But receiver was kind of on their radar, but that was before Jameson Williams worked out. So I still wonder if that's the case. Izaraku first round minus 400. Okay. I do love defensive linemen here, but minus 200 is hard to bet. So what do you think?
I agree. I think it's probably D-line, but you can't bet it at minus 200. And while wide receiver, that looks like a good number, but I think they're pretty happy with what they've got.
Yeah. Okay. So Redskins, Tyler Booker is the pick here, but defensive line is plus 170. Offensive line at the plus 325. Cornerback 4-1. Receivers 7.5-1. Booker first round is minus 667. I think I have him going defensive line or I guess edge, whatever. But plus 170 is not great value. I don't see anything here. Do you?
I put a little bit on wide receiver when the odds were longer, but I think now that they've shortened, you can't really touch that anymore. I think it's probably D-line. In fact, I really only had Booker in because he needed to be somewhere in there because his odds of going in the first round are so good. So I kind of squeezed it in against what they're really likely to take. But I don't know, this is an awkward pick. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they're not even picking in the first round here. I think running back here is a little bit interesting. You can get like plus 1,300 or something along those lines for running back, which I think is interesting. That's really the only place where I'd be tempted. Actually, it might even be plus 1,700. Let me look at that. But I think that's not out of the question. They go running back. There's been a lot of talk that they might potentially take a running back in the second round. But if someone falls to them that they like, or if they really like Travion Henderson or something like that, you could see them going here. Sorry, plus 1,100 on Bet365, but I found it way longer on other websites. So have a look around.
Okay. I mean, running back makes a lot of sense here. They even talked about needing to find like an every down back, and it was a weak spot for them. Flip says since Booker is a guard who only fits some schemes, there's definitely a chance he falls in the second round. Yeah, look, there's definitely a chance, but like a lot of teams love his character traits, locker room leadership, great tape at Alabama. I worry about his agility score, but that's like the only knock on him, and we know that the Colts love him, so that's something to watch out for. Colts another team, by the way. Let's see. I can see Kyle Williams 35 just because he played with Cam Ward before. I think you get Kyle Williams a little later than 35, maybe third round. Surprised Bills don't have receiver line to bet. That's true. John, 13-1 for Bills to go receiver on FanDuel. Okay, so let's get to the Bills. So defensive line is even, cornerback plus 275, safety is plus 375, offensive line 7.5-1, and as Tony said, receiver is 13-1. Starks under 23.5 is minus 132, over 23.5 is even, and Starks first safety is minus 105. So he's actually favored over Amanawari, looks like. Because Amanawari is minus 111 or minus 116? I guess Amanawari would be the favorite then. Okay, so any thoughts here? Maybe receiver, as they pointed out, 13-1 on FanDuel.
Yeah, and it's 14 to 1 on the one I look at as well. I don't really see it. They just brought in Keon Coleman and they didn't even use him particularly effectively. I know they've taken a couple of guys out and they might need to replace them, but I feel like they do that in later rounds. I feel like this needs to be a defensive player. It needs to be D-line or it needs to be safety, potentially cornerback, and that's why those odds are the best for those positions. I think that's probably what they stick with. Having said that, when the odds of wide receiver are so low, it's not going to hurt you to put $10 on it.
Yeah, for sure. John's saying he lives in communist state. Yeah, I talked about what I would do if I were governor before. One of the things I would do is make everything legal. So, well, as long as you don't hurt anyone, of course. But every betting thing, completely legal. Just go nuts. Do whatever you want. All right, so Chiefs, offensive line even, defensive line plus 165, running back 10-1, cornerback 11-1. Running back's kind of interesting. Like they talked about finding another running back, but they have Pacheco, so I don't think that's going to be the pick. The 10-1's okay. Simmons first round's minus 1,000. First round offensive line under 6.5, minus 200. Over 6.5 is plus 160. As far as offensive linemen in the first round, who do we have? We have Campbell, Membu, Banks 3. We have Zabel's 4. We have Booker's 5. We have Simmons' 6. Can we get this? Or Connerly will be 7. We don't have Connerly listed here. We didn't talk about him today, but I think seven's definitely possible. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's enough players that we've been linking that are good enough that we could go over 6.5. The problem is I couldn't find many teams that are likely to select O-line. Like I'm forcing Booker to Washington, for example. Like I don't know who the teams are that would take them, and that's where I really struggle. Maybe the Rams. I guess I don't have the Texans taking one, but finding 7 teams who are going to take one in the first round is where I really struggle with that.
Well, let's look at that. So we know let's start at 4 because that's where it's going to start. So New England could do it. Jacksonville, I don't think it's going to do it, but they can. So that's 2. The Raiders, no. Jets, yes. So that's 3. Panthers, I would say no. I think the Saints could. I don't think they will, but I think they could. So I don't know if you count that as 4, but Chicago certainly can. San Francisco certainly can. I think Dallas could.
I don't think we're going to have 5 guys go in the top 11, though.
That's true. So okay, so let's start with 3 in the top 11. Okay,
yeah.
So we go to Dallas, probably not, but like Miami certainly could. Indianapolis definitely could. I think I would say Arizona might. I would say I'm leaning no. It's Arizona now because, like you said, it's like who's going to be there. So let's just say no for Arizona for the sake of it. Cincinnati, no. Seattle, yes, certainly. Tampa, no. They just took one last year. Denver, no. Steelers, no. Chargers, no. Packers, no. Right, and Vikings, no. Well, I mean, if someone falls to the Vikings, like Kelvin Banks, maybe, but I let's just say no. Houston,
but then we wouldn't have 6 have gone by that point.
Right. Houston, absolutely yes. Rams, maybe. Ravens, probably not. Lions, no. Redskins could, but let's just say no for that. Bills, no. But the Eagles and Chiefs certainly could. So how many is that? 8?
It's 8, but it relies on 6 going in like the top 16, and then I don't know that there's like 6 top 16. I don't even know if there's 5 top 16 O linemen. I think that's my concern. It's more where the teams sit that worries me.
Well, the top we said 5 in the top 16.
6.
I think 6 in the top 16.
I mean 5 to get up to 7, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you have definitely 3 with Membu, Campbell, and Banks, and then I have Booker 14, so I think he could go. And like Zabel, yeah, Zabel could, yeah. I think maybe 5 in the top 18 is definitely possible. And then you have 2 more later. You have 1 to Houston. You have 1 to Kansas City. You could have even another one to the Eagles. I think Donovan Jackson could go in the first round potentially.
You convinced me. I'm in, guys. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Offensive line is just such a problem area for so many teams that I think I think the 6.5 is definitely the right number. But I would lean over. I'm not like super convicted in that, but I think it could happen.
I know I was arguing against that, but I just looked at my sheet and I already bet this.
That's awesome. 1940s Nazi Germany also didn't get NFL draft prop odds. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what we're saying. Tony says, absolutely could see 7 offensive line after 24 alone. Texans, Rams, Ravens, Lions, Commies, Chiefs, and Eagles all realistically could consider offensive line. Yeah, I think Ravens are less likely, but they could, Ronnie Stanley resigned, but they could. And then, I think Texans are what they're favored to take an offensive line. And then we didn't look at the Chiefs and the Eagles. Chiefs are favored to take an offensive line, and the Eagles are second favorite to go offensive line. Redskins are second favorite to go offensive line. Lions are second favorite to go offensive line. Ravens are second favorite to go offensive line. Rams second favorite to go offensive line. So I definitely agree with that. Lots of 25 to 32 also pick BPA. So that's definitely true too. Will Cam Ward have CJ Stroud, Jamie Daniels, Bo Nix like rookie season? Oh, I don't think so. Let's not put Bo Nix there. Like, I don't know. He didn't beat any good teams last year at all. Not that he played poorly, but like, I don't want to put him in the Stroud, Daniels cat. Like those guys broke records. Like Bo Nix, he did well. He did better than people thought, but he did not do nearly as well as this guy. So I don't think so from a real life standpoint. However, if you're talking fantasy, I think Cam Ward could have a really good impact. I don't think he'd be as good as Daniels fantasy wise, but he would be someone I would certainly consider in like the later rounds. I've drafted him best ball, I think, in like round 13. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on Cam Ward for, with this question at least?
Yeah, look, I think from an NFL perspective, I think it's highly unlikely he's anywhere near even Nick's. I think that's unlikely. I know he's highly likely to be starting week 1, but I think the chances of him having that sort of season is low. I think he's probably going to have more of a Caleb Williams style season, but from a fantasy perspective, he could be useful. The problem is, what's the scoring upside in Tennessee? I just don't think it's there. So I feel like he's going to be one of those like late round guys. You play him in the right matchups. He's kind of, you take a second quarterback because you took like the QB 10, 11, 12. And then you can use him if he somehow booms or if he's just got a good matchup that week.
You know what? Where Ward's going to be really good is if he's going against like teams that don't have a great defense, but like they have a great offense, and like they're just going to get like they're going to be up like 35 to 10 entering the fourth quarter, and then like he's just going to go nuts in the fourth quarter, just like running around like crazy. Like he's going to score like 2 rushing touchdowns in garbage time. I think like he's going to have like a lot of fourth quarter scoring, I think.
Yeah.
So Tony says Lions desperately prioritize strong offensive line play, so can't rule it out. Yeah, agreed. Ditto Philly and Ravens. Yeah, for sure. Tony says in particular, Booker fell to the Ravens. He would instantly be a good fit in the power run scheme. Agree with that. Philly too. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, Booker should definitely go first round. But yeah, the Colts like him a lot too. All right, so we have 2 more teams here. We talked about Chiefs. Never mind. We have 1 more team. Kenneth Grant, defensive line plus 105, offensive line plus 350, cornerback plus 550, safety plus 550. Grant first round minus 300. I can't believe that's so low. It's crazy to me. I think that you could probably make money going defensive line and offensive line. You're not going to make that much money going defensive line, but it's a hedge against your offensive line bet. The Eagles love addressing the trenches, and like they just took a corner in the first round. And like they're another team that values a positional value, so it feels like I feel like unrealistic that they go safety, but like Malachi Starks falls here, it's a possibility, but that would mean he falls past Buffalo and Baltimore, which I don't see happening. So I think defense line, offense line is a good bet here. What do you think?
Yeah, I put a little bit on D-line simply because I think it's likely to happen. That's the only one that interests me. O-line, I don't know. I know Lane Johnson's aging, but it doesn't feel like the most likely thing they're going to address, because if you look at the players that are here, there's going to be a million really good edge rushers they can take. I know I put Grant in here, but that doesn't really make sense. That's not really a need. It's going to be edge rusher, and there's going to be so many guys that fit that I think that's probably what they're going to end up with.
Yeah, I do think that right tackle is a strong possibility if there's a good player like Josh Simmons falls to them, just because I think it's a great fit because he could sit behind Lane Johnson for a year, so you can rest that injury. And then they love drafting for the future. Like they took Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis when they knew Fletcher Cox was aging out soon. They took Nolan Smith when they knew Brandon Graham was aging out soon. They took a couple of interior guys when they knew Jason Kelsey was going to retire, and now they have Lane Johnson, 35, 36. Like he's going to play like 2 more years, maybe 3. Like they could have a replacement just set and ready to go. So I think that offensive line just makes a lot of sense for them. The tackle at least makes a lot of sense. Maybe not so much guard, but they do love the offensive line, defensive line picks. Mike says, Tony Hughes, you really shouldn't call the team from a nation's capital the commies. Please call them by their proper name, the Redskins. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you tell them, Mike. Just in case says, I don't think Simmons drops like everyone else does. I don't know. That injury is so scary. Like that injury has ended so many careers. I really worry about it. Eagles very possibly draft edge, but they really don't draft for need. Yeah, exactly. Well, they draft for future need. That's what they do. Like they look at like the future and they're like, what do we need in 2 years? And like that feels like that's what they do. And then Tony says, really like Ben's bet for receiver for Washington. If Igbuka's there, I think they would take him. Long-term piece for Daniels, blocks his butt off, would appeal to Quinn and Peters. Yeah, I think Igbuka is definitely a possibility there. I agree. So I like that bet as well. Plus
I also
72.
don't. I don't agree with the idea that the Eagles don't draft for need. I think they absolutely draft for need. They went for secondary when their secondary sucked. Where they always support their O line and their D line simply because that's a priority for them. It is a need for them. It's always a need for them because their team is built around having a strong O line and a strong D line. So it's always a need. So you just got to think through their lens of what does need actually mean for the Eagles, and generally it means D line and O line.
Yeah, I mean, you could also argue that the roster is so strong that they don't really have that many needs. So, like, it may not look that way, but I think they keep the future in mind too. It's like, okay, like in 2 years we're not going to have this guy, so we need to get his replacement. So that in itself is a need too. All right, so the next slide here, notable exclusions. So Walter Nolan, first round's minus 300. Connolly, first round minus 182. Yeah, he's another guy. I think he goes first round. Like Houston brought him in. Seems like a lot of interest there. Trevian Henderson, first round, minus 132. Over 2.5 running backs, plus 130. Let's stop there for a second. I don't think it's going to be over 2.5 running backs, but this is a weird draft because there are so few first-round caliber prospects. So it could happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it probably won't, but I understand Henderson's a very good blocker, and that's really respected in the NFL, especially of those teams late in the first round. That's what they need from their running back. So I can imagine that him going somewhere. I can't find the team that he really fits with, and I think the teams that would get the most value out of him are a little bit too early and have other needs. So I'm not going to be touching Henderson, but I just think it's interesting, and I think it is possible he ends up in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Tony says sure not first. Oh wait, he's talking about running back. I had here we go. Flip says Eagles' biggest need for years is linebacker. Their linebackers suck forever. They never drafted one. But that was what I was saying before with positional value. Like they just don't value linebacker very heavily. I mean, and they ended up Zach Vaughn. They paid him money because he was so good. But they're just a team that they always believe that taking linebacker second round or later was the right move. So that's why I said like I don't see safety going there because it's the same thing. They just don't value those lesser positions of value. It's highly enough to take them in the first round, and that's why you haven't seen it. And this went back all the way back to 2002 when they had Jeremiah Trotter, the senior, was a really great player for them. And they let him go in free agency because they just said, oh, we don't want to pay our linebackers. And they paid the price because they had this linebacker that replaced him, Simino, and he was awful. And in the NFC Championship, John Gruden, to his credit, like he saw that mismatch and he's like, I'm going to target the middle of the field every single play whenever I can. And the Eagles got torched over the middle of the field in that game. It was merciless. Gruden just like attacked Simino over and over again. And the Eagles could not stop the Buccaneers, and that was not a great Buccaneer offense. Like, sure, they had Mike Allstott, who was great. They had Keyshawn Johnson, but like Brad Johnson was their quarterback. Like they should not have been like an offensive juggernaut in that game, but they were. He says I agree with positional value. Eagles just draft. They draft receiver, defensive line, cornerback, offensive line, and quarterback too if they need to. So that's where they go. Okay, so let's get to the other ones here. James Pierce, first round is minus 125. Jalen Milroe, first round plus 125. Seems like it should be much higher than that. Siobhan Ravel, plus 160. I kind of like that. It's not. I feel like that number was better before, but Charlie's talking up Ravel. Landon Jackson, plus 220. I think he can sneak in there. Trey Amos plus 205, same thing. Luther Burden plus 260. JT Tuamalo, we discussed this on Tuesday with Charlie's plus 850. Let's wait until Tuesday. We could maybe hammer this. I think that has a strong possibility. And Elijah Arroyo, a 12-1. Charlie actually just posted something today on Arroyo. I believe if it's not up now, it's gonna be up by tomorrow morning. That like there's some medical questions with Arroyo, so he could fall. But as I said before, Tuamalo is something I'm very interested in betting if Charlie gives it the green light on Tuesday. So any other thoughts with these?
Yeah, I just basically whacked in every player you and Charlie had in the first round and checked their odds just to see if anyone was missing. And there are a couple of notables there. No one that I'd really bet. I mean, I like Ravel. I had Ravel in like the very first two drafts of my mock draft way back when. Because I think he's got the talent. It's just we don't know what the medical's going to be, and you just I think with the odds like that, it's not as tempting. But when they were back out at like plus 400, I think it's really interesting. I think James Pierce is the other interesting one. I feel like he probably goes in the first round, but it's the same thing with Mike Green. For example, you just don't know what teams are going to think of him.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, this is, lots of great draft possibilities here. I can't wait till Tuesday to kind of cement what we're going to do. I'm going to post everything I bet online. And then, I'm going to make the trip to New Jersey. It should be a lot of fun, unless they suddenly change the law here, and I could bet that would be amazing. I would love to save time and also gas money traveling. And and also, it's not like the Trent Thunder baseball stadium is a great neighborhood. It's actually I feel like the parking lot's safe because there's some business buildings there too, and they have cameras everywhere. But when you're going off the highway into the exit, the 3 blocks there are very terrifying. I was praying every time, please, no one shoot at my car. But then once you get to the stadium, you're safe. So yeah, I would love to not make that drive. But it is better during the day. I'll just say that. So we have a 5-1 here. The USC linebacker. What are your thoughts on it? You brought him up earlier. 5-1. What do you think?
I bet him yesterday at 6-1.
Okay.
But a very small amount. I think it's highly unlikely, but there is buzz, and when there's buzz and the odds are good, you might as well put a small amount on and take advantage of it. It's gonna pay off sometimes. I think it's highly unlikely. It's not a high positional value. He is a riser, and I get that, but I'm not excited about him. Especially when there's talk of Jahad Campbell falling. I mean, it's hardly likely they're going to find a way to slide a second linebacker in there.
Yeah, usually, I mean, linebackers that position, that low positional value, where some teams just won't take a linebacker, so it's kind of hard to justify it. But I mean, 6-1 is a good number. So we had a question from Stanley here. J2K says Wild Pierce isn't a first round pick. Yeah, I mean, he has some character issues that he could drop out. The only guard from Kansas City, Trey, fell from second round to 6 due to medical concerns. Yeah, that was wild. I remember. Was it 2017? I think no, it was the spring of 2018 when Charlie and I were in Minnesota, ahead of the Super Bowl with the Eagles and Patriots, the first one, or second one, I guess. And then we were getting ready to go to this media event, and Charlie got a call from one of his sources, and the source it was a scout, and he was. He called Charlie just to gush about Trey Smith because he watched his tape, and he was like, I think Trey Smith's the top 5 player. He was so excited about it, and after the call, Charlie is like he just called me to talk about Trey Smith. It's he's not even in this draft coming up. So I thought that was pretty hilarious.
I definitely remember that one because I had Trey Smith in the first round in a couple of my mocks, and when he kept falling, I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. This doesn't make any sense at all. But with medicals, I guess it can always happen.
Yeah. So Sam's asking about Brady Cook. Do you have any thoughts on him? Because I feel like he's a day 3 quarterback. He's good, good arm, good accuracy, good mechanics. I just don't think he's a great prospect. It just seems it feels like a career backup to me. Any thoughts on him at all?
I mean, in that offense, I don't think we really got to see the best of him anyway because they do like to run. But I'm not excited by him. I think the odds are very low. I also really like the fact that my head is currently just sitting on this shirt. It looks like I'm wearing a tartan shirt. It's beautiful. This is very fun.
You got so dressed up for this. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. I look good. Look, I think the odds of him actually playing a snap in the NFL is very low.
Yeah, I think he'll be back up in the league, but we'll see. JTK Milrow having a sleepover in the green room. Yeah, it's going to happen. Maybe they just want a guy there for day 2. That just could be it. Injuries make things unpredictable. Yeah, I mean it's true, but remember everyone was terrified about Derek Stingley's injuries. And he played every single game last year, so I don't it's so unpredictable. Pierce can end up being like Javon Curse, put up monster numbers or completely disappear. Yeah, I mean he has amazing upside, but there's definitely a low floor too. Joe Walker is an edge right lowest I can see him going is 11. Yeah, he could go as high as 5. I've been talking about that. I think that's a strong possibility.
I think
And then
I think the Patriots take him if they don't go O-line. Don't know why they don't go O-line, but if they don't, they'll take Walker.
yeah, I mean, look, they loved Abdul Carter, so like maybe Walker is gonna be in the radar. Maybe Charlie would be like on Tuesday. They like Jalen Walker, so I can see that happening. Tony says, I remember Trey Smith. Yeah, I mocked him third round. Yeah, he should have not have fallen. Cook is the Chase Daniels of this draft. Nice. Stanley, what's your prediction, Tyler? Shuck. I mean, look, he's so old that I had him in the first round of my 2022 NFL mock draft. Like that's how old he is. So like that's the issue with him. Also, like the fact that he just didn't really live up to his potential. Like he's considered like a blue chip prospect, like first round, not lock, but like pretty close. And then he just didn't live up to in college. But like he has great ability. That's what I was saying with like some of these edge rushers like Shamar Stewart. It's like it's like same thing for offensive coordinators, like a quarterback's coach. They just might be looking at shock and be like, oh man, I could turn this guy into a good pro. So I think that he will go like third round, maybe. I mean, he's old, so that's going to hold him back. But third round, fourth round makes sense. I think third round mostly. Is that like where you think Shuck's going to go?
I have him early second round. I think I think teams can look at him, teams that are kind of like just need a guy to slot in and go, this guy can nearly start for us already, can come in and do a job. He doesn't have the upside of a lot of the other guys, but I think he's more pro-ready than the vast majority of the guys coming out. You expect that for someone that's nearly older than me, but at the same time, I do think that teams are going to think, we can work with this guy, we can make it work. And for that reason, I think probably somewhere between 35 and 55 is my prediction.
Yeah, wait till coaches are older than you. That's when you get hit hard there. All right. Well, what really sucks is when you're like you write up someone in like free agency, you're like, this guy's old, and they're like, wait a second, I'm older than him. that's like a reality check. You're like, man, like what happened to my life? I'm like halfway through this. So we can delve into that, but we are like 2.5 hours in, so. We should probably end the show here. So, guys, thank you so much. Well, real quick, Pine says Tuamalo was 21-1 on FanDuel yesterday. What you said yesterday, I don't know if that changed, but that's something I would love to bet if Charlie gives it the green light. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for commenting, watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you for Ben for coming on the show. Love having you on as always. Like I said, I can't wait to do some best ball drafts with you in the summer. Like once we know where everyone goes and like we can. We know when the bye weeks are and everything, and we could kind of like project fantasy. Guys, thank you so much. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. We have 3 comments on the way out. This might be last year where a player gets drafted who's older than me. That's it's a strange phenomenon when things shift like that. Tony says JT's 19-1. This is still a great number. And then Shuck was born about a month before I was. Well, I mean, look, there are multiple coaches who are older, who are younger than me at this point. It's gonna be weird when like someone's player comes in, someone's like kid comes in the draft, who's like playing now. I did cover Patrick Surtain, senior back in the day, and like Patrick Surtain too is now a star for the Broncos. That's a little weird too. All right, guys. Ben, do you want to talk quickly about let me read this. So about your website or anything else?
Sure. Look, if you need help with any fantasy stuff, hit me up. You can hit me up on Instagram at the Fantasy First Down or on Twitter at Fantasy First Down with no O. I will answer all of your questions. You can also check out the website. That's where I've got my mock draft and my dynasty rankings at the moment. Obviously, I'll have rankings for other stuff as well coming up once they're relevant. But more than happy just to help you out with any fantasy stuff you need, and also try my hand at any mock draft stuff too. But obviously, if you need mock draft stuff, you're already in the right place. You don't need to go elsewhere. But if you need fantasy help, right here.
I already said this in the show. Ben is top 10 every year in fantasy weekly projections. So, and as you can see here, top 5, number one. So, I mean, he's one of the best fantasy analysts out there, I think. And also he has this great YouTube channel, lots of great videos. I listen to it all the time. The Fantasy First Down, guys, make sure you subscribe to this as well. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We'll be back on Saturday with Tom, and then As I said before, next week we're going to have shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after the draft, obviously. Saturday, I'm just going to be too zonked out from day 3 to do a show. But yeah, three episodes next week as well. Yeah, I can't wait to get to the draft. It's hard to believe it's a week away. So, all right, guys, have a great night. Have a great start to your weekend, holiday weekend for those who celebrate. And I will talk to you later.